on Wednesday morning. It's supposed to be rainy in the morning. I haven't been able to sleep, and so I packed up and finished up the second turn of August 1914. Now, this is what's happened so far, whatever. I got everything all set up, was ready to play the whole game, started in the West, and fucked up enough things that, in part because the rules are lousy, in part because I'm lousy, that this is not going to be a workable intro to the full game, I think. I don't know, I may change my mind. Worse, I'm finding the game both ahistorical enough for the opening phases of the war, and and also very, very tedious and painful to play, to such a degree that I'm considering that I may bail completely. So my base intention was to keep playing this a little bit longer and see whether or not it is, I do want to keep going, or if I just call this failure what I'm going to work with, and play out the next couple weeks of August 1914, and then make a decision of whether or not it's worth continuing. Well, the biggest historical problem I have, other than my own fuck up, I've got two big ones. One is the Entente forces are allowed to move into Belgium pretty much at the same time the Germans crossed the border. The Brits did not actually make it in there until the 7th day of August. So that would make more sense that they're allowed to do it on the second week. And that would help the situation that I've got, which is a far forward defense in Belgium of Entente forces, anchored on the Netherlands. I tell you, if Germany faced this, they would probably run through the Netherlands. They didn't have to. That's kind of the point. Anyway, outside of that, the other thing I'm finding is that the game is playing by pretty much the same rules that it plays in the trench warfare period. Trenches don't exist yet. There are some fortresses, which work very much like trenches in this game. Trenches don't have a lot of effect. They're just extra hits that you can take that are cheaper to build than regular units. But the actual assaults and everything are eating up supplies and being ineffectual in largely the same nature that they would be at a later period of the war. And so this whole mobile period of the war feels like it's not actually going to break open the way it does. Other games have ways of handling that. They make trenches more impactful than this game does. This game, they're just, extra hits you can take, which fortresses are too, which also feels inadequate, because I don't know anything that just makes trenches as weak as they are in this period. They use different rules for the mobile phase. This is Legrand-Guerre's solution. They use different rules for the mobile phase than they do from the whole combat system kind of changes in some significant ways. Where what you've got going on here is something more like the kind of war, the past war, right? Because lessons haven't been learned yet, so both sides are kind of fighting the Franco-Prussian War, at least in the West. But it's not working quite right because firepower is already more intensive, and the French army isn't collapsing as quickly, and la la la. Anyway, that's kind of where we are. The Germans have taken Liège, but that's about it. The French Plan 17 is, I don't know, about what you'd expect. They don't go gung-ho on it any more than they have to. One problem that I'm seeing with the game is that the supplies that you buy every seasonal phase and that you start the game with aren't really enough to do much with in a turn. And I'm looking at this, not just from this August turn where a month has 4 turns in it. So, okay, I'm able to make multiple different attacks in that 4 turns. And that is basically the rules differential between the mobile phase and the non-mobile phase of the war, regardless of whether you have trenches or not, right? But which are pretty minuscule. When you get to the main game, you're going to be in the same kind of situation where whatever supplies you buy have to last you for 3 months, along with whatever reinforcements and whatever you buy. And I'm finding that unlike in any of the other games that I've played, because you need supplies to do just about everything. There are some things you can do, like move within kind of interior lines and stuff like that don't cost you any. But, performing any kind of attacks is going to require supplies. The artillery requires supplies. And you have a very limited pool. And I'm not sure, maybe you can come up with a better balance when you're buying your own, which you'll buy off the national morale. But certainly at the beginning, it just feels like there's too much to do that you're just not going to be able to put up any kind of offenses of the type that actually were put up historically. Not necessarily gaining ground, just putting up the offenses that were put up. And I'm seeing that the same kind of thing is likely to happen later in the game, although, again, you as a player may have more control. The counter mix doesn't really support it. I used up almost all of the supply markers, and the armies only get bigger and more armies show up and whatnot as the war progresses. Or they should. This is a problem that Le Grand Guerre and Balance of Power have, where the armies actually don't get bigger. They actually shrink, and you're not able to replenish your losses. And this may have something similar to that as well, but it may also have the supplies just running out in horrible ways. Anyway, that's about where I am. Not going to play anymore today until if I go shopping or choose not to. But I'm going to get some sleep in before, even though I don't fucking feel like sleeping. Anyway, so far the game is showing itself as a massive disappointment for something that appeared kind of interesting when I looked, which is why I picked it up. They don't usually just pick up random strategic World War I games. I picked up this one, maybe on someone's advice, maybe not. Certainly, some of the statements of it sounded very interesting. And, I picked up others that I know I'm not going to like. Death in the Trenches, based on, someone's advice who I respected, but then I learned why he likes the system by playing other games that use the same combat system. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to like that, but whatever. Anyway, let's stop for now. Wednesday and another failure. I woke up at like 4:30 or something like that. And I don't know. That's like 10 hours of sleep or something. I was expecting to get up, and I was expecting to go even if I got up at like 2 or 3, which is pretty much what I expected to wake up at. I got up briefly around 9:30 or something. I also thought about doing some yard work just now. I'm like, just not in the mood. It's just so fucking pointless to me because it's like, it's not like there's any reason I'm up at night, right? Other than the avoidance of getting things done or whatever. And the problem is I enjoy the feeling of accomplishing something, I need the food, but I enjoy when I go out and I do the yard work and whatnot. But like going for a walk like anything else, the fact that I have more enjoyment with that than how the rest of my life, how my life is normally led, it throws into doubt everything about, it's like, it's like I do what I don't want to do no matter what. And it's, I don't know. Anyhow, here we are, back up here, and we've got clear weather again. Zoom down here. Is there anything I'd want to do with the air phase? No, because it costs supplies to get so little. Which drops me to the offensive phase. Again, initiative is random, which also feels kind of weird. It's going to be in the Germans' hands this time. I feel like they learned a lesson. But we are in contact with the enemy everywhere. So here's the question. Do these defects in the line, I've slipped through here, I've got a hole here, I don't know if there are any others. Do the defects in the line say I want to go first? Because I don't really see this isn't going to be all that much stronger, Or do I let the French kind of wear themselves out? Now, what did I miss? I missed the supply phase. All right. I got to reallocate my supplies. That's actually far more important. And that has initiative. Okay, we'll give the Germans the initiative on that. I knew I missed something. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have the supplies where I need them. Okay, let me rearrange my supplies. I can rail move most of them. There are some headquarters. The Second Army is not on the rail line. Third Army, I think I can rail to that. What I can't do is I can't rail through this zone of control. Do I have an off map there? Nope. So this headquarters is kind of cut off, which is bullshit. Because if there was more map here, I could fall back and be on a rail line. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much wrong with this game. I really should just quit, but I'm waiting on my on my next game to get here, or maybe I start reading rules to something I've already got, like the Baltic Empires or whatever. I diverted a lot of my supplies to where I'm intending to make my big pushes, not realizing how much supply gets eaten up on offense and how little on defense. Basically, if you want to do artillery, is the only time you really need to blow the supplies on defense. You need it for, yeah, I might find I'm gonna regret just how much I stripped off the north here, because the Belgians and English can send their supplies to the French too. There's nothing like, different calibers of gun or anything like that you have to worry about. It's just supplies. That's a little ahistorical, not just the shell differences, but also the willingness of what was already allocated to the army being shared with allied armies. The English actually provided support to the French and whatnot, but it was not filtered through their army headquarters. And the Belgians certainly didn't provide support to the French. They had enough problems. They didn't, but, so what am I looking for here? I don't even fucking know. Oh yeah, I'm looking for the active defense. That's the thing I'm worried about. I'm not going to be able to conduct active defenses up here very easily because I really stripped points off. I probably need to get, and maybe here too, I probably need to reverse some of those decisions. I'm looking at, hey, how many points can I rail down there or whatever that, it'll cover me for these next 2 turns. Well, I only have to do one more turn of big push here and one turn of big push somewhere else, and we're done. Yes, that's a high price, but I've put enough that I'm like, ooh, maybe I could succeed. Screw that. What you can't do is you can't use supplies from like a British army to support French units directly. But again, that's if they can just shuffle supplies back and forth, it's not quite as big a limitation as it would seem. Anyway, I'm going to break here before I go into the offensive phase because just moving the supplies around for the 2 sides was heavy enough that now I want to go read or something. A little bit more thought on my life. The idea of going out and reading, it sounds fine. I'm willing to do that. But the fact that I didn't do anything means I'm not going to treat myself. I'm not going to have a cigar. I'm not going to have a drink, even a beer or whatever. So certain other aspects of enjoyment, are also deprived because I don't feel like I deserve them. It's just, I get more pleasure. Like I wouldn't even enjoy it if I went out and sat and had a cigar, but I would if I got something done, and I would enjoy the getting something done to a certain extent. Yes, my ankle hurts and everything, but there are plenty. I could just have put together my damn hedge trimmer. I've had it for almost a month now. And it's still in the box. I haven't even opened the box to see if it's workable. I could go out with clippers and deal with some stuff. It's not like there's any reason I'm not doing it, except that I just don't feel like it. Like I woke up too late and I just don't feel like it, even though I'd feel better if I did these things. I fucking hate it. Up here to play a little bit more. It's funny, I sat outside and read for a little bit. It's a horrible book I'm reading right now. Fiction, but science fiction, but not at all good. And I'll probably cover it anyway, briefly. But sitting outside is just so pleasant here. I'm sitting on my deck. I have a wonderful view that I get to look at every now and then. Didn't see any little critters. Anyway. We do have to roll for initiative again because I screwed up with the supply initiative. So let's see who gets it. This time it's going to be the French. Or the Entente. I don't know which way I want to go. There are a lot of advantages to going second in my view. Now, here's the problem. I could force the Germans to go first. I think they could pass then. It's a weird situation. Yeah, they could pass. That would put France in a very bad position where they'd have to go first. So no matter what, it's still sort of the Germans' choice which way to go. Now, if I just grab going first, like, if the Germans want to go second, they can force me to. If they want to go first, I could hand that off to them. On the other hand, I actually think I want to allow the Germans to go first. And then I look at the German side of things, and the question is, well, The question is what I had before, which is, can I afford? Yeah, I may want the French to go first. I forgot about these gaps here. Yeah, the French are going to take the initiative. And so we get to continue our two big pushes. What we do elsewhere, here we want to defend, which may mean we don't want to activate our units even for an attritional attack, because that takes away our defense. It reduces some of our capability there. And it also eats up supplies, and we did kind of reduce our supplies a little bit. So, yeah, I think I'm just going to focus on that. And this is weird because it means I don't want to do attrition because it takes away my capability of using the artillery for anything else. I just feel like there's so fucking much wrong with this game. And yeah, I could dig my hands in and fix some of the issues. There's no question. But at the core, there's no differentiation between the war, or very little between the war before and after trench warfare starts. Since weather is good, I'm going to throw a third big push in, though, wherever that may end up being. Might end up being here because I put all kinds of supplies there, and it would be painful anywhere else. It's just the Plan 17 just forces me to eat up supplies. Again, that may be fine. I'm getting myself in a situation where my entire front is going to collapse in the south from this. These not so bad. In order to deal with this injection here, I've had to strip everything away from here to create a big front, or a big push here. And then I put the third big push here, which I'm kind of doing because the weather's still good. I could get a lousy weather next turn, but I've opened up a gap up here. To some extent, I can fill in some of these, but there are going to be gaps, and I don't know how big they are going to be. You know, if they're 1 hex, that's okay. If they're 2 hexes, though, still possibly okay, but I could be giving up some ground in that. I'm not giving up this symbolic here. But, yeah, and I'm not going to do anything up here. I can't afford to anymore. I've shipped as much, so much supply forward, and I just don't see much advantage to being on the offensive right now, except that the rules are requiring it. This is, where the break open is going to maybe happen, is because I'm being forced to do all these big pushes in the south. And I mean, I can't do it up here. It has to be below that line. So I could change things a little bit, but I've got these vague hopes of maybe some kind of breakthrough or advantage happening. It's not going to happen because it's like fucking trench warfare here. First, the Germans are absolutely free to use artillery in defensive support. They can only use it 1 hex per, but yeah. Maybe it will. The French open up with a success over here. They did pull a unit out. Actually, that unit isn't necessarily what's getting pulled out. I got to pull another unit out because I hadn't decided that the Germans were pulling out. The French just were like, yeah, I don't want a 2-point unit that I have to pay for. Carefully placing my attacks so that I can fill in up here rather than having to, fall back to where there's more defenses. But it is leaving things kind of weak down here, where the Germans might actually, they might try to take the hex back, but they also might try an offensive there. There's nothing that stops them. And I actually have a lot of supplies down on this army. Tough fight here because being at the edge of the map, because these don't connect directly, whatever. I'm in a situation where the Germans are actually getting beaten up pretty hard here. The French don't really want to spend the supplies, but if they can take this hex, they can cut these guys off from supply, which means they can't really launch, they can't be used in a counterattack type situation. So neither side feels like it really can give up the fight at this point. There's too much at stake. The German, I know, I can't give it up because I lose the capability to counterattack. Yeah, I gotta fight. Not unsurprisingly, that ends up with another French success there. Wowzer. To situations where things are sliding off the hex that they belong on. I don't think it's because of pooching. I think it's just the nature of the material here and the counters and whatnot. Or something. I don't know. But I had like the Epinal fort moved down here for some reason. There seems to be a real tendency, and maybe it's because there's these fort counters, but I don't remember this problem happening, say, with empires and alliances that had fort counters on it and whatnot. I don't understand if it's something to do with the materials or my glued together counters, having to paw through the stack and keep making change from the this is probably the biggest thing with the supply markers, just having to just constantly be pulling money off regularly. Fortunately, this hex here I view as kind of a do or die type hex in that I'm going to have a lot of trouble covering for it with my withdrawals if I don't take it. So far I've gone a couple of rounds, I'm using artillery in it, but I'm not doing all that well. And that's not good. And again, the Germans don't view it as do or die. They're actually withholding their artillery to defend, one of the hexes that could compromise their line more. It's one of those situations where somebody's making a mistake, right? But maybe not. Like if I don't hold this hex becomes problematic. Just lost a division due to a pair of ones by the Germans. That gives them a fail on their monthly goal again. That's going to be some more national morale going away. And our situation is really looking dire. To the extent that I think I'm going to fall back. I can cover these three hexes lightly. But again, that's tempting the Germans to make an offensive to try to break things open a little bit more. And we're going to see things opening up in the wrong part of the board, honestly. And no matter how well the French end up doing, and they didn't do well on this attack, they want it to fall back, and they probably want to fall back with a few of these. They just really want as many units as they can left so that they have some kind of defense. I don't know whether or not I've just opened up a gap here. We'll see. The effects of what you do in this game, I haven't internalized how to figure that out. Not how to figure it out, but how to just see it by picture, and instead of stressing over it, since I figure this is a failed start, although part of me is like saying, just let it keep running. I'm not sure, how much I care, sort of. I think I forgot to mention. So these units are both activated, even though they've declared different big pushes. They can support each other with supplies as long as they're active, as far as I understand. So I've almost used this guy's supplies up. I'm going to probably go to this guy. But he had more to begin with. So he's going to take a greater chunk of the front, essentially. And I'm afraid I crossed a river down here, which is going to make life harder. I probably crossed a river somewhere else, too. Like if I attacked there, I think I did. I don't know. It's really hard to see the terrain when you have masses of troops like this. And there's not much you can do about that. I mean, it's World War I, except by making the hexes big enough that the units are kind of swimming in them. It's like the effort that this game is taking is extreme, to be honest. Um, I'm actually, this is the easy part, right? I'm not building trenches every turn, which really is pawing through every stack and spending a supply to build trenches up a level each turn. I haven't gotten to where I'm reinforcing units, which is going to be pawing through the stacks and trying to figure out where I can build up strength points. Now, I don't really remember the reinforcement rules very well, not having used them yet. I don't know if I'm going to have to do further thinking. This is a very thoughty game in some ways, in terms of making sure that I pull units back out of zones of control so they can refurbish. I don't know if the zones count for that, like if they prevent you from building up your forces. Either way, though, I mean, mechanically, I'm going to have to be pawing through the stacks. If it is important that I pull units back, that's going to make a lot of the decision making much, much more complicated. I'm not saying that kind of decision making didn't happen in the war. I'm saying I don't want to face it. It's just, it's too painful to handle. That's going to increase the overall burden that the game is lying on me. I really feel like, I'm really feeling like this is way too much in terms of the effort involved. And then it's not giving anywhere near the payoff, at least in this stage of the war. What's happening with Plan 17, I'm actually kind of okay with. It feels kind of like what I'd expect out of the trench warfare, but Plan 17 got butchered because they were hitting bad terrain and everything. But I don't feel like it's terribly the terrain or anything. I feel like it's just the system butchers you, on the attack. It really makes it hard. Now, if there's no terrain, the attack isn't that bad because you can get mass numbers and whatnot. And there I'm thinking, well, where there's decent clear terrain and there are trenches, it's just more hits. And by the way, there's a fort at Metz, which I just hit. I guess this hex. I managed to hit with a 1 with my only hit, so I did a real damage to the Germans. But again, once you get to trench warfare, the fact that trenches are so cheap to rebuild is a big deal. While you're at fortifications as the only thing, look, those don't even regrow, And the idea of capturing one seems highly unlikely. You have to get so lucky. I've already said that. Anyway, I guess we're on to the next big push. This one did not succeed at all and is in kind of a problematic situation. This one had some good success. Let's finish this one up. Okay, reinforcements. This is weird. So combat units within 2 hexes between themselves and the nearest enemy combat unit can take reinforcements, but it costs them a supply as well as the points for the actual strength points that you built. If they're within 2 hexes, it costs 2 supply as long as there's a depot within range. Again, either way. Wow. If the placing nation controls no supply, That's, again, another complexity, where I'm going to be expending supply and trying to balance that all out. And I'm just looking at both the mental overload and in addition to the obvious mechanical overload. I just think this thing is a nightmare. It really is. Anyway, as I slowly work my way through, and it's not like the combat is simple either, and there's a lot of them. Like La Grande Guerre, you generally have many fewer attacks along the front. Maybe not in this first turn, but you know, that's got a complex combat system. But it's not just rolling tons of dice either. There's more going on, more storyline going on in it and everything. Yeah, I don't know. Kind of a reminiscence to another game I quit, Chosen, over there, that I got as a door prize at CSWE. Now, it's for different reasons, but that one just had like these ridiculously huge stacks that like just made combat so painfully it wasn't like there were huge stacks everywhere like the fucking Diffusion games. I don't understand why people like those either. But rather just tons and tons of stuff, and it had a fairly complex combat system, if I recall correctly, where you had to deal with a lot of different things in it within these huge stacks. And I just had to quit. It was just, you know, too mechanically painful. This one, though, is adding other factors to it. If my DHS shipment had arrived, I would be quitting. I think. I don't know. It's like I can kind of see playing. It feel, you know, I'm kind of on that same line that I was with Summer Storm, which was like, I can do this. It's just so horribly tedious, and I don't like the efforts that I'm going through to get it to work, and I'm not getting the kind of accuracy I expect. Although that one is not bad for the actual movement in combat. If you get everything right, it's okay. What's problematic in that is when you add the thing that makes the game interesting, which is that it's covering the whole Gettysburg campaign and then blows up into the Gettysburg map itself. But there's no particular reason within the game that you'd want to fight at Gettysburg, so you end up fighting. You could well end up fighting where you're not able to play it out on the tactical map, and that's just bullshit as far as I'm concerned. And it's like, yeah, that's no good. All right, we keep going, I guess. And in order to show what I was talking about you have to kind of pre-think these things, and you screw up, you're fucked. I've opened up a huge gap up here by making those big pushes, because I can't return to where I came from, essentially. I took too circuitous a path. Now, conceivably, I could have left like single hex defenses there and attacked with less units or something like that. And that's what I'm learning, you know. There's no way in hell I would have made these attacks if I wasn't forced to. Okay. So anyway, we've hit the initial combat. And at this point, we hit the active defense. And the Germans have two places they can attack, here and here. I don't have supplies to get these guys out of there. But I could consider whether or not I want to go for that. Another thing that's pissing me off, these symbolic markers, beyond the rules on them and whatnot, and they kind of get lost. So, like, I feel like if I end up taking something with a symbolic marker, I may be like, oh, neat, bonus, you know, if it ends up happening. I don't know where they are under all that crap. It's fucked up. I just reread the rules on the Western Front map. Honestly, you should cut this out and tape it to here. And the Eastern Front map one, you should cut it out and tape it up against there. I'm not sure they're the same scale exactly, because that's been an issue. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hexes. 6, 7, 8, 9. Looks like it fits perfectly. Oh wait, no, that's to. Yeah, that'll work. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. But that's right, because it's here. See how the road goes there. So yeah, they should instruct you to cut them out and tape them together. Which means that I actually am in supply and can do all kinds of stuff because I can just jump back in off of here and come back in here. So there is more of Germany back here. That was one of my gripes, was I felt like I could only travel on the roads. That's not the case. I just looked at this. I can't find where it is now. The German extension map contains the Strasbourg map edition and the Berlin map edition. These are continuations of the Western Front and Eastern Front. They use the same movement scale and can be crossed into or out of through the edge of the map marked with a red and yellow line. That's this. That's just saying, hey, they link up completely. And so this is less, these are less of a coup than I thought they were. And yeah, we're gonna hit them. There are a couple of stacks set up to counterattack on those. It's gone several rounds, both sides kind of wearing down. French have, I guess, the first option to leave. I mean, do they really want to, have this little jutting out? I don't think so. And it becomes worth a victory point if I take it back, if I give it up. So I think I'm gonna abandon it at this point. I thought I could hold the Germans off, but maybe I can. I'm eating up their supply. That's the big thing. To get a successful counterattack, or any attack really, you have to really use a fair pile of troops and supplies and whatnot. I was successful. I pushed the French back, but at what cost? Well, I ended up giving up a couple of hexes. The French are going to be able to freely move and take those. Now, they don't really want to take them both, but they do get to push forward where they wouldn't, the success they had here is giving them an opportunity somewhere else. It's kind of weird. I think it's completely ahistorical to evacuate the front for the counterattack, right? But the game allows me to do that, and I'm not really sure it's that horrible a thing for the Germans to give up that ground. I mean, think about other games where you'd give up some terrain to get a good attack somewhere. I may have caused more casualties, which may be more important and whatnot. Unlike La Grande Guerre, this game doesn't just make terrain that you lose an important thing, And it's like, yeah. This may or may not be a river line. It looks like it may be. I don't think it's a national boundary, but I'm not sure. No, that's a national boundary. See, I see this river going up here, and I see blue here. That's it's the same color blue. This looks a little too angled, but who knows? Yeah, I don't know. It just feels weird. Now, this is the mobile stage. If I was leaving trench lines there, that would be problematic because the opponent could capture the trenches. That gets me down to the German offensive phase. And we only have one offensive phase each. I got to clean up, get some supplies hidden. Make lots of considerations here for the German side of the offensive phase. Obviously, look, I want to break through here. That's the Schlieffen plan and everything, and I'm set up my supplies to do that. But there's opportunities that are interesting. Now, the French had the initiative, right? Yeah. I know they went first, but they may not have had the initiative. The French had the initiative, which means all these activated troops, they're out of play. But it does give me the opportunity to maybe pull back a little bit here, cover a little bit more territory, give up some ground, and create a safety net if the Germans don't take an offensive down here somewhere. Whereas if the Germans take an offensive, they can spend supply to gain more hexes, using the non-combat movement and exploitation and all that. So it's kind of an interesting situation. No matter what, I can shift forward a hex if I use my points of supply to try to make attacks, and that may be more valuable than trying to gain hexes against that river line that was protected here. So there's all kinds of interesting options open, and of course I have a big push, which I may want to keep running because it gives me some morale, which, if I hold on to it till the end of next turn, gives me more production. There's just so much to balance here. It might help me to open up a second big push. And maybe I want to do that because I just stopped doing this big push and open a different one, which puts me in the same place, and launch attacks along this front. I could just keep the same big push going along that. These are within range. Over here in the south, I'm launching a number of attacks. Over here around the edge, I've activated 3 headquarters, and then cutting around here, actually slipping around through here, I was able to get a couple of units into this hex. It's a weak hex. I may not be able to take it, but with artillery support or something, maybe I can. And I'm actually thinking I'm going to call a second big push over here and launch across here, because that fulfills my requirement. I can declare new big pushes whenever the fuck I like. There's no restriction on the number of them. That's what I thought the offensives number was going to be. It's not. It's how many maps you get to play on, and that's it, which feels goofy. This is what I've settled on, switching the big push here. Doesn't change any points because I gave up one, added one. And I think I'm going to activate these and throw them in too. This thing's activated, but it's not doing shit. It's unable to support anything really. Headquarters, since they've already been activated, even though the Germans were able to fire in defense and now get a counterattack, the French don't get one. Now up here I get, for artillery, not a counterattack, but they don't get to fire in response. Attrition doesn't seem useful right now. This is too exciting a point to rely on that. I played around with it a little bit early on. Probably didn't want to. There's limited information. The French don't know how low German supplies are here. So we lost this hex and retreated back. Here, we're going to give this up too. But we're giving up stuff that's allowing us to fall back to a better defensive line in some ways. So maybe not so bad. A little note to disallow entry into Belgium on that first turn by the Entente. I think that's a big part of the problem that I'm facing, in addition to me screwing up some rolls and such not. But yeah, things that kind of annoys me, among so many, is I have an activated marker under there. I don't know if I'm going to remove it, like, I can't even tilt my counter safely without, because of the stupid orientation factor of it. I mean, I can tilt it a little bit, I guess, to show there's something red under there that I ought to pay attention to. Huh. Put it upside down, too. That's not cool. Because one of the units in the hex is activated already. One of them's not. I'm not able to withdraw into this hex. Actually, yeah, I want to be there. Okay, fine. I'm getting damn close to cutting this thing off. If I can take this and hit that on the exploitation, things are going to be very ugly. But I probably don't have the supplies to do all that. I have the feeling that with the amount of thought that has to go into allocating supplies properly, I'm probably going to see ridiculous kinds of breakthroughs because somebody fails in bad ways and has to pull back. Same thing with the having to leave units to garrison but not having enough strength points to go forward. Just all this kind of stuff is really gonna randomize the front in ways that, you know, somebody who really paid attention and was very careful in a way that I'm not able to be careful when I'm playing a game might be able to figure it all out. But I don't want the game to be a logistical nightmare, you know, of the level that like actual war planners have to deal with. I'm happy with something like OCS or Le Grand Guerre or something where, yeah, you know, I might fuck something up a little bit, but I'm not like caving the entire front because I made some little mistake that's hard to see, you know. Attacks in the south were all successful, but the French did get to pull back. Now they have a gaping hole around Toul, which is a problem, definitely a problem, but the Germans can't really get through. The gap that they have is just 1 hex wide. That's not good enough. They have to blow through here, and they're not going to be able to slip in, except they could have pushed forward if there were French troops back further. Then they could increase the gap, but they can't increase it without those because exploitation only works on combat, and non-combat moves aren't going to allow me to cut through this hex I just captured. So a double, you know, having units behind the line is actually kind of dangerous in a weird sort of way. Now we come to a big ugly where I think we're crossing the river on 3 of these hexes. That's going to be ugly as hell. And this thing, I think, has no supplies. As the stack looks too big, I found out why. I'm overstacked in there. I'm going to throw somebody out of it into another hex because, I mean, technically it should just be eliminated, but oopsie. My attack here, which was successful, using a hefty artillery barrage. I have a lot of supplies up there right now that I moved up there. I notice that's opened up Liege. Now, if I have a supply point, I can move a unit into Liege and hold it, but you can see where shit just happens, right? It's like, yeah, maybe it wouldn't have if I had launched my attacks up from the bottom first. But I wanted to see what happened here, because that might affect my desires to withdraw, but now my desires to withdraw are made more problematic. I think I do have to switch to the bottom here now. I'm attacking a hex down here that is both rough and forest. They have different effects, and I don't know if they're cumulative. Rough gives a plus DRM to the defending land units. Forest gives a minus DRM to the attacking land units. I vaguely remember something that said that I interpreted it as forest trumps the rough. But, you know, where I said it's actually the highest terrain, essentially. However, I decided to go look for it. Now, I look in the map rules. I couldn't find a terrain effects rule. It says rough forest, heights, mountain, peaks, blah, 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 blah. The effects of the terrain are detailed below, but there's no below here. But then I look at special, something else. Map features, towns and cities, blah, 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 blah. All of these are detailed below. I think they just mean further on in the rules somewhere. So now I got to try to find where the actual terrain rules are. I went looking for them briefly. Great rule set. There is actually a section on terrain, which is important because it affects both movement and combat. There are no combat rules. They're in the sequence of play. And the movement rules, you wouldn't expect them to be there, but yeah, there's a separate terrain section, deep into the rule book, page 24, as opposed to where I was looking, which was, I guess, page 6 and some over there. But it does say, if forest terrain shares a hex with an elevation, the terrain of the hex is forest. So I guess that rough terrain does not have an effect. This is good, because it would be horrible to have both in effect. That would make things really ugly. Right, so what am I doing? I'm lost because I had to do rules lookups. I don't think I've spent any supplies yet. I hope I haven't, because otherwise I'll be spending them twice. I'll probably spend from back here. I've got to remember which artillery pieces I've fired and which I haven't. I fired this one. There's nothing to mark this, but I don't think I've fired any of these three. And I probably do want some firepower. Now, forest affects only land units, so it won't affect my artillery fire, which makes, like with the river, it makes artillery fire very valuable, and I want to do that. Now, I am facing some pretty hefty stuff, so this is not going to be an easy fight at all. I'd be pawing through all these stacks to see what I'm facing, but I think it's all going to be pretty decent stuff. And I don't want to go through, I'm pawing through stacks enough and too much, to tell you the truth. I'm able to look at them because I've got my stacks in with them, but I really don't care to, because it's too much fucking work, and the game is already too much work in too many ways, which is what's going to introduce the most serious effects on this, on what the outcome is just sloppiness, laziness, bad decisions. All that is going to combine in, and that's really what's going to drive this game, as opposed to the actual rules, because the rules are too hard to actually implement because of the mechanical and thought processes involved in them. Maybe if it was just one or the other, it would be okay, right? Like, it doesn't seem worth burning my brain when I know I'm going to make mechanical screw-ups. And it doesn't seem worth making all the mechanical effort when I know I'm going to not be able to project everything out, especially because the mechanical aspects are so complex that being able to picture them in advance is actually just harder. You know, it adds to that brain burn aspect. This hex is really valuable to me. It opens things up so that I can push through. So, even though I'm beginning to like fritter away in the combat, I kind of want to stick around another round. Some good results, a couple of hits on the French. That makes it more appealing for the French to fall back. The problem, of course, is there's this gap that I can't really afford to let open, but I could counterattack on the active defense or whatever, and maybe get a better odds. The problem is it's good terrain. I think we'll stick another round. What I do like about this combat system is that quite often, I'm thinking like War and Peace here, the combat systems don't really give you a good reason for both sides to be there in the battlefield. I think for World War I especially, there's a hell of a good reason that both sides want to fight a hex. That it's not worth pulling out even if I'm at a disadvantage, because maybe I can still win. Losing that hex is too important. Gaining that hex is too important. Both sides are making choices to fight where they wouldn't necessarily, but there's definite advantages. Now, that may only be because of the stupidity of this gaping hole that I created. It's not familiar enough with the system, because had I withdrawn, I could have covered these two hexes. Now I'm still covering the gaping hole. It's gone. Yeah, there's some ugliness, the possibility of an advance there and all kind of stuff, but it's not like we're not going to see the Germans just running up the middle. It's only by sticking and fighting that I actually made it more dangerous, because I could have withdrawn into both these hexes otherwise and created a more solid position. But where I don't have to retake that hex, which I really don't want to have to attack. Too much to ask that there be really big hexes in a game like this, but slightly larger would be, just because of the amount of crowding that there is, would be very advantageous. It's too hard to see what the terrain is. Brings us down to the active defense. Now, I'm not going to try to cover any of these back here. This one, I might want to go after. I don't really need my activated markers on the French anymore, unless there were multiple offensives and I could, go back to this map and hit again, giving up warfare with the Russians or something. I really hate that mechanism. Up here, I'm a lot more interested in trying to retake those hexes. I think that they are really kind of problematic for me. The threat of an exploitation, etc. Right then. Careful not to open up a hole, though. Decide on two things. My river line is breached if this is allowed to remain, so I threw a shit ton in there. And this one, I'm trying to keep a more solid line so the Germans can't break through in the south as far as it looks like they can. I have no idea whose pieces are where. I think I've got a solid French line, but maybe I don't. Okay, had to walk away for a little bit because needed more tea, needed a new pipe, all kind of stuff like that. So let's get on with these fights. Oh boy. If you want to take a hex back, you can in this game. That big pile, yeah, it had almost no trouble pushing the Germans back. Of course, I used a humongous pile against it. And I was also successful back here, where I think looks like we have an objective there that we succeeded in. The Germans still do get an exploitation if they want it. What's weird here is in every hex that was attacked, conquered, and held, the attacker may continue to move the units which participated in the earlier offensive into an adjacent hex or attack adjacent units. Now, is that the exact same units that are in that hex only? In which case, yeah, that's not going to do shit. I mean, you really have to be hitting garbage if that's the case. So I've been reading it is that I can move any of my activated units and try to open up the front that way. And that is appealing here, maybe even here, although I have to cross the river. I could slip that way. That's not too bad. Over here, I've got the French headquarters. I don't know how well defended that is. It looks like it has a couple of units under it, but I can't tell. And I'm not allowed to use my recon now. Maybe I could have watched how the French retreated very carefully. And again, whatever fog of war there is, if you're like using eagle eye powers and watching and have a photographic memory or an eidetic memory or whatever, so that you can absolutely tell what they're putting there. That's an advantage. I don't know what to even say, what that means. Likewise, I took this hex. I could try to bust this open. And I think these things are worth doing. So we are going to go ahead with some exploitation as well. There's sort of dichotomy where the exploitation is sometimes more valuable if they have a double line, but in this case, it's particularly valuable because they don't. Watching this hex in the woods, hoping to kind of bag this entire Entente force here. It's not going to happen. It's got plenty of room to fall back. If it so desires, it can even do it in the free movement, because none of those none of those have activated markers. Some of them should. Oh, crap. I took activated markers off that I shouldn't have, I think. I don't know. But some of them should be free to move. And I don't know which at this point. Oops. Over here, I'm a lot less aggressive, maybe taking too much, or maybe too aggressive, taking high risks on these attacks. But if I can open this up, I don't know how much can get through, but it does get me across a river line maybe. We'll see. This one is particularly questionable. The breakthrough up here. Down here we weren't able to succeed in either hex, largely because we were out of supplies. We actually had to take a shot with our last supply point, and yeah, crossing the river and whatnot. If I had consolidated everything against this, I probably would have gotten that hex, and that would have been a better outcome by far than getting repulsed in both hexes. Definitely a mistake. I'm not sure I could have gotten everybody down here, though. Right. That gets me to non-combat movement. I have to spend supplies to use that. So obviously not going to happen down here where I'm fucked. But up here, I can gain a lot of ground. Cost of 6 supply, which isn't that much, for the amount of hexes I just gained, and a forced march, which cost me a strength point. I was able to cut around this way and get down as far as Sedan. That's a nasty breakthrough. That's going to make up for me not being able to advance in Belgium, probably. I don't know. I mean, I'm missing a lot of ground in Belgium I should have. But it is an interesting factor there. Now, there are no more offensives. There's just one each, which means we go to the movement phase. The Entente has the advantage here. This doesn't cost anything, and we can, with the units that are not already marked activated, and I don't know what to do up here. I think I have to hold the line. I'll pull some units back that are double density to try to create a line in the back against where the Germans have advanced. But what am I saying? I don't remember what I'm saying. But anyway, the Entente has the initiative. I screwed some stuff up, and I'm going to try to make up for it as best as I can. Again, this system is just really taxing in certain ways. And there's some stuff that I don't think that I could pull back, but I'm holding, I think, that river line still. Oh. It looks like it might have taken a way into it. It's really hard to see what the terrain is underneath all these units. It's all incredibly taxing. I'm still not through August 1914. Yeah, I am 3/4 of the way through, with one turn being basically a pass across the board, which also was a problem, but the weather was shitty. Pull back and pretty much, using forced marches in some cases, pretty much cover the line here. We got some Brits who've intermingled with the French. No rules against it, man. But down here, things are more troublesome. I've got some gaps that I don't know that I'm able to really hold together. They're not, I think, complete gaps, although this may be. Ruh-roh. Those French units are... all these fucking activated markers. Yeah, those are French. Okay. Yeah, I think I've got things covered about as much as I can. There is a little bit of a hole here, weakness, but the Germans don't have any fucking supply down there. So, and can't remove the activated markers yet because the Germans now get their free move. And theirs is a lot less interesting. I don't even really want to pull units off the line yet because it's not time for reinforcements to come in. And eventually had a counter squirt. Things got bumped. No idea what their values are. This is, you know, I had this issue while I was trying to sort the counters. Used fingers, being less careful than I should be. Could be, you know, because things got rotated, man. Best I could. Maybe it's right, maybe it's not. Who the hell cares? You know. Now I start plucking the activateds off where there are flags. Those are locations that are worth something. Those are going to be scored. Got to remember who I take them from. If it's a city, that's easy enough. It might be a difficulty if it's a symbolic, but I don't think we have any of those cases. But one problem with that is, as I pick my way through, it's just this long, tedious task. My back starts giving out. It's hurting, you know, from playing. And the thing is, I want to finish up the turn, and I'm like, yeah. But then I have what seems like a simple mechanical task, and it's actually pretty taxing. After the counter squirt, now I know I have to use tweezers for this. And yeah, I don't know, just doing it with tweezers hurts more. I don't know why. Okay, so I guess this is what we have. I don't know what's under here. It's Belgian, I guess. Looking for different color schemes, whatever, because I know I got those hidden things. Germans gained 6 points of national morale. Belgians lost a couple. France lost 4. I don't like the 100 and 200 being on the same, because I got 2 counters on what looks like the same place. I just don't like it. Okay, I thought that was like something else. I didn't think the German one at 0 was actually a counter. I thought it was a lock being shown. The remaining thing, France failed at their goal. So they're down to 170, which doesn't sound bad, but they've got 15 that they've banked in. The Germans have 5 that they banked in for their big push. Those are going to go away. So the actuality is, well, the French are at 179, so 15 drops us to 164. The supply situation is shit for everyone. That doesn't bother me too much, because from things like the 1914 offensive à outrance, I don't know if it was because of supply, but the armies were less able to keep going once you got this far into August. Or maybe September, I don't know. Maybe I'm just mistaking it. And we go back to these settings. This is the 4th turn of August. The rest of the board, the Balkans and the East Front, come into play here. It's going to be a much harder turn. Definitely breaking here. And I hope I remember that I got to play on all all three fronts. The markers have just stayed at the three fronts the whole time. But, we're seeing something interesting. It ain't World War I the way it happened, but those troops that I sent up to Belgium, maybe they would have done a better job of keeping the Germans from taking, Sedan. So maybe there's a price for that, even though I feel like it's got more to do with me fucking up, with attacking with too many units and not leaving units behind, as I would if they were in trenches, because I'd look and say, well, maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't, I don't know. Maybe I needed to learn the danger in this game. But I'm not too unhappy with what I'm seeing developing, even if it's not the historical development. There is a significant German push here in southern Belgium, and maybe beyond, and there's definite danger to the French here. You can see I've got a gap here. That's a problem. I've got weak units on the line. I think this is just going to develop as a very different game, and I may just continue with it until I get to the point where I can't cope with the game anymore, whatever that ends up being. All right. Back up here, unable to sleep after a couple hours. I don't know why I thought I could. Felt tired. This is what happens. Didn't even get a nap this time. I don't know. Anyway, I still feel tired. It's weather time. Well, we got 3 maps now instead of 1. So, Western Front, we're still in the summer. Ooh, not good. That's going to give us wet. I don't remember what wet does. I think it just fucks with the movement. But that's pretty bad. Land and supply movement decreased by half. Artillery effectiveness dropped. It's not as bad as rain, but okay. The Eastern Front. That's going to be fine. I should have a marker on there. I do. And then in the Balkans, a 3, that'll be fine as well. And I have that marked. Okay. Somebody actually mentioned, look, a lot of these games, have first turn should be clear weather, which, the weather definitely got in the way of getting a historical result. But unless you have, the historical weather throughout, it's going to eventually become a factor. And the things that sparked the war, I don't think a weather report was particularly important in terms of the final decision of when to go in. I could see it happening. It's something I don't know anything about. I'm just, kind of guessing here. All right. Now things get complicated. Supply phase. I could shift supplies around on the other fronts if I felt like I've over or under built them. I don't know. It sounds like a lot of work. It's going to be the Germans first. This is not necessarily good for them. But again, it's not necessarily bad either. I almost feel like the supplies could be done simultaneously. Because honestly, neither player should be terribly aware of what's shipping around there. But again, you could just eagle eye it and I mean, there's nothing that says you can't do that. And this disturbs the crap out of me about games that have hidden information or whatever. It's not absolutely clear that you should be averting your eyes or anything. It's not like they're truly hidden counters. I don't know. The Germans probably would have moved this forward the last turn. I'm just like, now that I know that it's just part of the West Front, I'm a lot less oh, maybe they should garrison that, but oops, forgot about it. Wow. Again, we have this kind of, I don't know where things are. They kind of bump around quite a bit. So all my supplies are up in the north at this point, and there's not that many. There's like enough for one punch. Probably not a big push. The movement is a minor factor in terms of what kind of forces I can gather. I don't know that I want to get any supplies down here to back these guys up. It means I have no defensive fire or anything, but also, I don't know, I got these gaps here. If I win the initiative, that's huge. I could actually gain a lot. Maybe I want to move my... And by the way, these wouldn't be contiguous, so I couldn't do a big push against these 4 units because there's a gap in them. I kind of like the idea of a big push. Which is just of a very different nature than Le Grand Guerre's grand offensives, which are like so much richer in concept than you get some morale. Like, I'd like to be doing a big push this turn. I just don't think I can. Yeah, why don't I shift the supplies down that I have? They're all on rails, so that'll be easy. And attempt to break there. That I pushed some out of the 6th Army here up to the 2nd. I feel like the Belgrade area is the more important thing to hit. Man, that's a big stack. There's like 3 armies there. That's the problem. That will put me, I guess, on the Entente supplies. I'm assuming more or less that the Russian front is okay. I only have 1 German headquarters over there. And I think the Austrians and Russians are all kind of spaced out. I don't have a lot of options here. Serbia headquarters are almost all in Belgrade. The Montenegrins, they don't need a hell of a lot of supplies. They're actually probably not going on the offensive. They might not need any. But they might not need any anywhere for the most part. So I'm going to focus almost entirely on the west front here. Again, a big push would be useful so that I get more production. I don't think I can maintain it. Like most sets of turns, where there's 3 turns, then an interphase. For the west front here, I've already played 3 turns. This is the 4th turn. Now, the first turn was pretty mellow. I don't know that I expended anything, to be honest. But, and then for the other fronts, they only get actually 2 turns before, they don't get this, but they get 2 turns before they get the autumn interphase. So, in terms of, we're running on a shoestring, I think, in terms of the supplies we start with. And actually, the more I'm seeing supplies as being more and more important, the more I'm thinking that the majority of my points are going to go into supplies rather than building units up. But we might change our mind now that the French are kind of thinned out and whatnot. They may have some problems and want to be reconstructing units more. It's a fuck up that the well, maybe not, because it was done on the advances or whatever. But the French headquarters was alone here. I'm able to slip out during the supply phase. But yeah, I was looking at, well, I want to move the supplies out at least. I can't move the units out. But wow, that could have just been stomped on during exploitation or something maybe. I don't know if I had the opportunity to. I think it was only the non-combat movement that could have gotten into there. But kind of a shocker. To a change here, I pulled back with some of my headquarters. The French, I may want to pull that back too. The French got some supplies from the Belgians again. The Belgians don't have many troops. They didn't need all their supplies. 3 offensives each. Which, where did my turn marker go? Oh, I just slipped it down. Okay. The initiative for the offensive goes to the Entente. And now things are kind of tricky. Like, I don't know which front to go to, right? And whichever one I go to, here's the thing. First of all, I could pass the initiative, which maybe I want to do, but with the initiative, I could maybe brush some of these Germans back. And that is not a bad idea. Might even be able to do a big push. Like coming, I don't know, it's going to be really hard. I'm just thinking about shoving them back in a clump. I don't have very much supplies. I don't think I have enough to conduct a big push. And I did kind of spread them out, which makes that harder. If I allow the Germans to attack me, that'll bring all their forces forward into this no man's land area that, like, I've had to give up or whatever, which that's not optimal. I think I need to think a little bit away from the game. My tea's running low, my pipe's out. It seems like a good idea to pause for a bit. But I do know that the initiative is on the Entente. It's just, if I want to pass, I can do something. I could just pass. I could hand the initiative off. But I could also do something like take a front that I don't particularly want to conduct offensive operations on, maybe. But I may not want to do it on any front. The Russians want to conduct offensives on the East Front. There's no requirement, though, for Austria, although they do have a big push that they have to make over the course of the year. And this is probably as good a point to start it as any, because things aren't going to improve for them, I think. It's already the dawn coming in. Boy, that one light is really bright that's not shaded. I wonder if, I don't know, I could use something different to protect it. But, I mean, it provides good light here. It's just horrible to stare at. What did the Entente want to do? I don't feel like the setup on any of these fronts is necessarily in a position where I need to have the initiative. So the question is, do I get anything huge out of an initiative here? And the very least I could spend to do non-combat movement with activated forces to... Why did I lost this river line, that's why I fell back. Okay, I guess. To fill in any gaps that I have. So that becomes appealing. So I think I'm going to take the initiative here on the West Front, and we'll see. Let me think if I want to launch any attacks. There's not a whole hell of a lot I can do defensively. I don't know. The British and French big push combination, and the Brits actually need to conduct one. This is weirdly stated. The British and French need to conduct at least 2 big push in total a year. These can be conducted by just one of the 2 nations, or the 2 nations can cooperate, okay, to conduct one each or both together. I don't know. I think the British or the French, yeah, we got Britain / France. I have to do 2. I've already done 2 for the French, but I think I can throw the Brits in on one, and that'll give them the big push morale bonus along with the French. Now, the French are going to actually lose points because these 3 big pushes I'm going to get rid of. But I'm kind of coordinating forces up here, and I'm thinking, hey, I might as well get the morale advantage of another one. I don't know where. This is both of these. They're not going to be continuing either, probably. This is. So right now I have 2. I'd be getting a 3rd there. I could take quite a few hexes. Unfortunately, the river line is kind of useful to me, but I think the morale advantage is a big bonus too. So I don't know, you know, because I can duck in and duck out. How to mark this, because there's only one big push going on, but it is the English and the French. I've got this here between the French. I guess I'll put one over near the English as well. And I've dropped some troops in place. I don't even need that if I've got it right on the English. I've got some troops in place. I'm actually hitting more locations than I need to for the big push, but some of it is I want to beat up on some of these smaller stacks, and therefore I don't need as big a stack to attack as I was using against, you know, 2 unit hexes. But so I guess it's time to do the initial attacks. And I can actually use these supplies. Wait, no. Where's the unit? Where's my unit that's stuck in hell? I guess it was this unit. Can't be. I got somebody. Yeah, he backed out. That's what it was. He was in this hex. That's what it was. Okay. I can actually use him. Maybe I thought these were German? I don't know. I don't know what's going on over there. Like, I thought I was really stuck between some Germans. And now I don't feel like I was. The attack was successful. Now, normally I would use a little flag for that, but there's a point value to it, and it was a French-owned. Oh, no, it would be a German-owned space. Okay, that's fair. I forgot that if there's a German unit in there, it was a German-owned space. Okay, not a problem. I was thinking, wow, I've got a weird situation where I've got to mark something, but no, the Germans had already gotten their points for it. So that now becomes a target for possible, although I really doubt it, counterattack there. Got a couple more hexes to fight for, and I gotta change my battery situation. Not getting a pretty sunrise today. I mean, it was pretty early on, but not in the colorful sort of sense. And now it's just gray, those big clouds. I discovered what was going on. So these 2 units are stacks of French attacking Germans as well. That's interesting. I don't know what that means in terms of what I choose. I can still do this hex first. This was just done for the big push. I don't know who owns it. I think the French do. I think they'll fall back. Who has to make the decision first? Because the Germans might want to fall back instead. At the end of a successful initial combat. Yeah, I don't know. It looks to me like defender has first option to withdraw. See, if the Germans withdraw, they could end up creating a victory point hex, but only for the French, really. But they'd leave the French kind of out of position. I don't know. This is so hard. Like, the Germans could just fall back to here. It doesn't really hurt them. Except that these hexes are cut off. Yeah. Fuck. I don't know. What happened? There should have been a huge fort at Verdun, and it's not there. There's a destroyed huge fort. I don't remember. Like, I don't think that's what... I don't know what happened. Like, if I just walked in, I just took it. But I can't find it under any of the French units, and it feels like it went in there somehow. It was a fake fort. That's Sedan up there. Verdun's down here. Okay, we're fine. Sedan does not have a fort on it. So I didn't fuck something really terrible up. Yeah, I'm at the point where, like, it feels like I'm fucking things up enough, or have fucked things up enough, that they just, like, spiral in weird sort of ways. I have enough supplies to continue that attack. I couldn't have taken the hex, but the Germans are out of supply, are basically cut off over here. I destroyed one of the units there. Sedan itself is surrounded. That's going to create an interesting situation of trying to save that or something. Nothing horrible happens to it. It's able to fight just fine, which feels weird. Honestly, a situation like this feels like they'd be surrendering at some point. But now we have the possibility of the Germans coming back on a retributive attacks against these spaces. I don't know if they're worth it. And then, of course, I can do exploitation and everything, but the French have no supplies on their activated stuff. And I gave up this space for a reason. The headquarters can be kind of hard to notice in the mess. So I found I've got 3 headquarters with almost no supplies just running down the line here. I moved the second down to get it on the rail line, honestly, but I just don't think it's worth. I don't think it's worth fighting, because I'm facing hefty sets in each case. Breaking through here would be useful, but I'd be better off trying to make some kind of offensive and get back so that I can link up with Sedan there. And like I said, the French don't have the points to do anything unless it's incredibly valuable. So that's going to put me over to a Central Powers activation. Now they have to make their decision of, I mean, I could just pass. They have to make their decision of, do they want to take an offensive on one of these fronts, or they could take this one without any penalty, really, because now the Entente's already gone. Although the Entente could double team on that, you know, for whatever value that is. Like, they don't really need a Balkan offensive as far as I can tell. So, you know, if there was some desirable outcome that the Germans left them with, they might be able to do that. The Austrians are kind of looking at, I mean, we're just so outnumbered by the Russians, and the Germans obviously are up in East Prussia. that I don't know what I'm going to pick, but for example, I don't have to burn an offensive. I can just pass and not do the Serbians and make sure that if the Austrians want to attack, I get a follow-up offensive if I want it. And I don't feel like the Germans want to just pass. They've got some stuff in place, and also they want to make their big push, and that would go away if they absolutely, if the Entente just said, screw it, we're not going to fight. If you pass, I'll pass. Although I don't know that they'll do that, because the Russians do have a big advantage on the East Front right now, numerically at least. Historically, it was a mixed bag, but not at this point necessarily. I don't know my dates. But I do know that I haven't had an opportunity to ship Germans out there, because that front doesn't exist yet. Gosh. Well, I don't want to do it right now anyway, so I'm going to back away and try again to get some sleep. I mean, if I can get like a short amount of sleep, like 4 or 5 hours, that's perfect. That's actually what I really want. I want to be out and about sometime in the early afternoon. To get up relatively early, honestly, like 10:30, earlier than I hoped for. I'm a little sleepy, but that's okay. And woke up with dreams of donuts and sweets and things, and unfortunately also sugared slugs. Tom Cruise brought them into the office, and he was laughing his head off that me, actually tried one, I think. It tasted good, but then it was gross. But anyway, I definitely had this desire for sweets. Like I wanted donuts or something. And so I made French toast. Anyway, I think I'm going to play the Charmans over here in the east, on the west front. I don't particularly want to jump on the east front, nor in the Balkans. One thing I wish existed was something that would mark who has the initiative. I know now still that the French have the initiative, but because I'm away so long, and this is a game where I could definitely see being away quite often. Because I'm away so long, I feel like I kind of need some kind of marker to remind me, because the offensive phase, fine, I can handle that with the die moving back and forth. It's clear that somebody went, but I'm a little worried about the movement phase, when you can move all the unactivated units. Let me try to figure out what the Germans want to achieve here, if anything. Among other things, this territory was essentially given up. If they want to come back in, that's fine. I'm not looking at that as, in and of itself, something I need to do. And I don't have a lot of supplies, but I probably want to keep a big push going. I want to keep a big push going if it doesn't cost me too much. I actually feel like the extra attacks up here that the Entente made might have cost more. So, I mean, I had to attack with like 4 units or more than that. And I might have actually lost more points from that attack than I'm going to gain. I'm only going to gain 5 from it in the upcoming production. But on the other hand, I also did some damage. So it's like, you're always going to have these cost-benefit type decisions to go on. This is really bugging me. Problem for the Germans is, I could do a big push here. 1, 2, 3, 4. That looks appealing, to tell you the truth. But that means leaving an attack here out. I don't have the supplies to do an offensive in both areas. I think I'm going to go for the big push because, look, I'm going to want to hit four spaces in either case. This gets me in deeper into France. Fighting here, I don't know. I mean, subverting the south looks useful, but it looks it looks less appealing overall than a push up here, which puts a threat on these guys as well. And I don't really have anything that's going to be able to bust that unit out. So this is getting me closer to that, I guess. There is actually an effect to being out of supply. I didn't realize this. There's no markers for it, unfortunately. Out of supply units take a -1 DRM when attacked and cannot participate in offensive or active defense. You don't have to spend anything, but the fact that, like, I don't have any way to trace out of here, that's going to hit me with that. And they also take additional hits every 2 rounds of combat. Starting with the second? Yeah. So that's pretty nasty. Like, a big stack would be bad. You're not going to see a direct surrender, which I think actually at this stage in the war you might have seen. But, yeah, I don't know. Tannenberg, you ended up with units that were cut off and destroyed. I don't know how much they had to be attacked to destroy them. Here's the big push, and that's all I'm doing. I don't have supplies for anything else. I mean, I could do an attrition attack. A 1-round artillery bombardment. I don't know. Might be worth it, but I doubt it. Much of a breakthrough here, and the Germans are out of points, and that's probably pretty apparent with how limited their attacks were. So I'm not expecting any kind of exploitation, but I think the French are going to try to take this space back anyway, because it's crossing the river. I don't know if it's fully across the river. I think here I managed to attack in without the river crossing, but elsewhere I had to make attacks across the river, which didn't make things any better. It was not a good turn for the Germans overall. So I think we see a active defense is what they call it. The mechanism that the active defense and then the exploitation kind of replace in La Grande Guerre is the ability to reinforce from adjacent hexes. There's a little bit more with the exploitation where you could actually, and then the post move, where there's the non attack movement or whatever, that really feels more like exploitation. I don't mind either one. I actually feel like the capability of some sort of breakthrough feels right, especially given that these hexes are less territory than the ones in La Grande Guerre. But in some cases, you can have pretty extreme breakthroughs, and I absolutely don't mind that here in the mobile phase. The problem is it's the same combat rules between the two phases. The mobile phase in La Grande Guerre allows for a lot more exploitive type movements to happen. So far, a couple of rounds of combat have happened here, trying to recapture that space. The Germans don't know how much supply the French have. The French actually have quite a bit left. This isn't that important, but I have to make my retreat choice first. Odd I'm leaving, even I'm staying. Okay. That's the wise move, but again, the Germans have no idea that the French have as much supplies as they have. They probably think that the French are about as low as they are. but they have over 20 points actually banked. That's kind of hidden trackable information. You might not know exactly where it is, but it's also, I think, almost impossible to actually count. You know, I mean, if you were keeping notes or whatever, fine, but I certainly didn't. I was surprised by how much the French had, and therefore the Germans would, you know, have a fair chance of being surprised. End of the operations on this front, but I don't get to do the free move stuff and everything. That's got to happen after the other two fronts are resolved. And I am going to prepare myself to go shopping. So not much happened here. Not much happened here. The French did gain some territory where the Germans were honestly overextended, but it looked like such a cool move to go take Sedan or whatever. I made it shopping today. Ended up coming home, made myself a yummy pastrami sandwich. I'm so happy my store has pastrami. Apparently they've had it all along, they just hide it. They keep it in the back and don't put it in the cabinet normally. Now I see it. And it's expensive, but it's a treat worth having. I didn't buy ice cream or chocolates or anything like that. I did buy donuts. They were on the day olds or whatever. Okay. It's the Entente's turn to pick something. I'm kind of annoyed, and there's no way around it, that the general movement, which includes rail movement, and that's why, is at the end and is all three fronts together. Because I like to think on one front at a time, but in order to do front transfers and stuff, which certainly the Germans are going to want to do, I don't have much choice in the matter. So, the Entente has the option. Now, they won the initiative, remember. I could do the East Front. I wouldn't mind the Central Powers going first there. I could pass, in which case the Central Powers would have the capability to end the turn, which I don't want to have happen. I want to make my attacks in the East. I could do the Serbian front. I could say fuck the Serbian front anyway and do something again over here. I actually have some supplies left. So lots of options there. Passing, I throw out as an option as being unhelpful because it gives the Central Powers the option to end the turn. Now, they probably want to do the Balkan front, so I could probably get away with it and force them to go first. But they'd go first on the Balkan, then I'd go on the Balkan, then they'd pass on the Eastern Front, maybe, you know. So I'm going to have to go first on it anyway, if it comes to that. But this is a big question. Is there something that I could get an advantage from? I could actually launch a second big push, for example. By the way, having France and Britain split the big push, if I'm reading it right the way it is, this is outstanding because they can both get the morale advantage off of it and neither one has to commit to 4 whole hexes, but between them they have to hit 4 hexes that are adjacent. So it wasn't pleasant to do, but I mean it reduces the issue. I think my supplies are all here because that's the only big stack, and I really don't see the French forces being able to get a grip on anything that I particularly want to hit, especially since the one thing, you know, that's really vulnerable, all my activated units have already hit there. So I guess I'm going to bite the bullet and look over here at the Russian front. Now, Russia only needs one offensive. Yeah. One big push. But I might want to do multiple multiple offensive actions up there. And of course, this means that the Central Powers goes to Russia, goes to the East Front next, and forces me to go into the Balkans. But I can pass in the Balkans and take second there anyhow. I fucked a few things up with the Russians during the supply phase. They would have moved some of their supply forces forward. I didn't realize that they weren't positioned for the attack. So I'm shifting some of those as I'm declaring my attacks as well. Is this fair? Not really, but again, I'm not all that comfortable. I may have to do the same thing with the Austrians. I see Second Army. I got to make my decision on what the Second Army is doing, but it's too far back to be able to exploit any successes it might have. It's probably not going to take Belgrade successfully, but getting some of those other hexes, I want to be a little closer. On the opposite side of things, I want the Serbian headquarters out of Belgrade. So I'll do both of those later on before I touch anything here. The Austrians are probably okay in the locations that they're in. I kept everything in line here. I gotta consider. This is not a game like most games. You move, then you combat. So like I move all these forces here, but doesn't really work that way. With only 4 movement points here, I can get here, but I can't actually attack. The Russian moves forward are easy. Okay. I'm not thrilled about it, but all right. This I did not move forward, but yeah, the Germans weren't going to attack. Let's move a hex forward, I guess. The only problem with it is if I want to get to Memel, but I don't see an easy way to do that, honestly. The iffy thing is where the 9th Army wants to go. 9th Army starts here. That's flexible, and I could have railed that to any front that I want. I've got a lot of stuff on the Austrian front. But you can move it here, but I'm already set up, not actually pressing the issue in Poland. So I'm actually not in command, so I think I can do normal movement. I don't think I have to be in supply to do normal movement. I know it doesn't have a supply cost. I could conceivably push my Russians forward into Poland, and actually that appeals to me in certain ways because the German protections there are really limited, but I can't do that this turn. I have enough supplies to deal with this. I have enough supplies for anything. I'd like to succeed in Tannenberg, to tell you the truth, but I think I'm going to put this one down here. Because the Germans just don't have anything in East Prussia yet. What I was saying earlier about, the setup being different, and I was kind of trying to allude to it with the Russians could move forward here. I kind of got off what I'm kind of talking about. What it actually affects with the game, since during my offensive declaration, I have to hit the enemy. So it says the Austrians haven't gone yet. If I attack over here and thus take these victory point hexes, say, well, the only way I can do that, well, first of all, I'm too far away from this. But the only way I can do that, let's say I want to hit this, is to actually move units into there, move units into here to attack. And that's crossing a river line and whatnot. That's not a pleasant situation. And in addition, they're going to be out there on their own. I can't bring supporting forces forward with them. Now, this would be completely different if the Austrians went first. If the Austrians had gone first, then I could relatively safely make those attacks. They could make their counterattacks or whatever, but what they wouldn't get is an offensive against me. But I don't think I can make an attack here or an attack here. I know I can't make one here, but yeah, it's just, the thinking's very different. And I'm not sure it's worse, although I do have to say, it feels like I should be allowed to send supporting troops forward. And the fact that there's a front line that's too far away for me to reach feels artificial. That's not going to happen much as we get later in the game, where the front lines are in contact with each other everywhere. They started out in contact here and here. It's just the East Front is fucked up, and, well, I mean, the Italian front is completely fucked because there's no Austrians on it, which just feels absolutely ridiculous. There was an Austrian army, at least one, garrisoning the Italian front. And I don't know where it is. I guess I got to build it. But yeah, there's something that feels very, very odd in that I can't have those supporting troops going forward. And again, like much of the game that's happening in this mobile war period, it feels like something's just fucking wrong. Gripe. Yeah, so many. Again, it has to do with the disjointed fronts and everything. And normally, when I would face something like that, I would play one front and then the other front. And that may be what I have to do, but you have control over which front you want to fight over, and you might be able to double up on fronts and all kind of weird shit like that. So I'm looking at, okay, the supply phase, all right, I can fix that, no biggie. And I can kind of cope with that as I go forward. You know what I'm not going to be able to cope with? Let's say I wanted to use reconnaissance planes, and I actually was kind of considering whether I did. I had to do that, again, integrated, all fronts together. And I'm not going to remember what interesting places I might have fought. I mean, the West Front took me, a day to do, right? Maybe that'll slow down as we get out of the August, but I don't know how much, because big pushes are big. And I got to do, a couple of them each on, on each side on the West Front, and then, yeah, wowzer. Like, this is again a situation where, like, I guess I could put some kind of marker to indicate that I observed a hex, to remind me that I can look at it. But all my thinking is going into, okay, which hex might I want to attack right now? This is when I want to send those recons out. Not back in the air phase when And I don't know how to fix it. I mean, obviously, we could jump in and I could remember who had initiative on the air phase, and I could have both sides do their air phase at that point. But that really doesn't help either, because if one side moves first, I have no idea what they have after they've taken their offensive options. They may have shaken up their forces quite a bit. And now the other air operations, yeah, I'm okay with it. Counter air, bombing, stuff like that. I mean, I might want to support what I'm planning on hitting, but I can also use them as combat support too. Anyway, right now all I have is the recons, so they definitely are grating on me. Okay, I only see one big push. So that's going to go up 5. Not that. Technically, I'm going to make that big push both of these headquarters, and I'm going to put a supply marker here, or an activated marker here. That way, I can continue the big push with either of these and keep it steady. It doesn't really matter. I could swap it to something else. It honestly is almost unimportant. Anyhow, launching an attack here on the sort of corner of the Austrian forces. Here, this stack, I'm not sure is a good idea. I'm crossing a river, but it feels like I'm getting, the kind of grip on the Austrians that I want. The Germans are in range to support any of these. That's my only German headquarters. The Austrians have several headquarters that they can support with artillery, the defenses of their units. One thing that I like about La Grande Guerre is that if an opponent takes an offensive on a front that you're receiving, you don't have to make an offensive on that front. That does not apply over here with the Anglo-French. Of course, they only have to do a 2-turn big push. So, yeah, whatever. And I think a consolidated British-French makes up for it. I'm not positive about that. And let's see, the Germans have to make 2 big pushes, but they could get away with both of them on the east front. They don't have to go over on the west front. But they got to make them different ones. Now, I don't know how you define something as a different one, right? Like, that's a little weird, because it's got to be like different units or something like that, right? And it can't just be a different headquarters calling it in. And so I feel like I'd have to, well, with the Russians it would be easy, but with the Germans, let's say I made a big push in this direction, and then my next one would have to be down here or something like that if I wanted to do 2 on the east front. I couldn't be reusing... I know I can't reuse the same headquarters, which is a reason not to call 2 units the same big push, because you can always redefine the big push. It doesn't quite fit together. I shouldn't be able to just say this is a big push coming out of the Second Army and then switch it to the First Army and say it's the same big push. Although, I don't know why. I mean, there's no reason to do that, right? I don't know. Because I can make a different one and it has the same effect on the morale status. There's no concept of losing an offensive or something. La Grande Guerre handles that really, really nicely. If your offensive doesn't achieve its goals, you have failed. And that costs you national morale, or national will in that game. Whereas... if your grand offensive succeeds, you get a big bonus. Here, as long as you have one underway, you get a little bonus. And there would be reasons to have 2 underway. I'm close, but I couldn't justify it. Yeah, this is a huge stack. Maybe next turn. Next turn's too late. No, it isn't. Next turn's fine. Hey. Actually don't need it right now. I'm going to be forced to have to do one in bad weather. That's a key issue, and I have good weather right now on this front. that the Russians were entirely successful against the German Eighth Army, and I don't see a way around that. We might see exploitation coming out of those too, because the German army is pretty thinly spread. The Austrians are also thinly spread, and perhaps poorly set up. I've got this unit behind a river line. I can throw artillery in. I've already fought one round. The question is, do I stick around or not? It's a tough call. Like, the terrain's not great. Oh, by the way, the shadows on the units are causing me issues, where I can't easily tell what's this color and what's shadow. Like, I see this, and this looks like it could be either. I think it's shadow, to tell you the truth. Yeah. It's just, I think it's because that light over there is so bright. Because it's causing shadows that I don't usually get. Yeah, I don't know. You know, do I make them pay a cost for that hex? But it's going to cost me supplies because I throw the artillery in, which is no big deal. That's the kind of artillery fire I can get off attrition results. So it's kind of cool to use artillery on defense. Or because I'm facing a bunch of units, but the river line gives me such a bonus. I think I keep fighting. Been successful across the board again here. Now, one problem. This hex, it's sort of captured. It's captured because it's worth a victory point or a morale point. But the Austrians can't actually do an active defense on it because they didn't lose it in combat. I could tilt the counter or something. I don't feel like it's any issue. I don't think they're going to active defend, to tell you the truth. But they might. I don't know. It seems unlikely to me. Another difference between the La Grande Guerre and the way combat works here, because of the way active defense is handled here, where you lose the hex and you have to go back in and take it back, as far as I can tell, you can't fire your artillery in support of an active defense. The enemy, I think, can. No, probably not. Probably not. But the enemy has probably activated their units to support the attacks that they're making. But even if you had one that was inactive, I don't think you can fire it during the active defense. I didn't see anything about it. I think only in the initial combat is artillery at play. But what's kind of... So that's a part of it, or that's actually the issue, is that you're not fighting over the same terrain and able to get an artillery fire. I don't know which is more accurate, to tell you the truth. Because it makes sense on the initial defense of the hex, before you lose any ground, as it were. And, you know, you're not really losing a hex when you get knocked out, right? You're losing part of the hex because you can still fight over it and try to knock the enemy back out. But while you're taking a normal defense there, you're in position and you have your firing lanes all set and everything, and you're hitting the enemy as he's coming in. And that's kind of the bonus of why defensive fire makes sense there. But with what this is kind of assuming, that you got pushed out of your position, those fixed fire lanes are no longer there. Maybe some of your artillery had to pull back, something like that. And I can see the argument for why the artillery no longer has the same impressive effect that it had. So I'm kind of uncertain of which way I'd like that to go. All right, we got 3 more to go. Oh, and then we have any active defense and any exploitation. Whee! Capable of doing all of that. So I'm going to pause here with these 3 still unattacked. Because I'm going to have to do these 2 and everything, and it's just like, yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like being up here that long anymore. Of course, with having gone shopping, is that I took a little bit of a nap, but I didn't get that much sleep to begin the day with, and I'm dead tired now, which would be fine if it weren't Friday morning now, and I need to make it to a certain hour, say 4 a.m. or so, before I go to sleep, in order to, be on a good habit for my dancing night. Anyway, I got a few more attacks to do. Russians continue to plow into the Austrians. This final hex is again in the woods across the river. A unit was reduced. It's at -2 for the woods and the river. That puts it down to below 1, which meant I had to roll 2 dice to see if he hit. He would have had to get 1s on both of them. Not very likely. The Austrians are going to get to slip away with that unit. In terms of active defenses, anywhere that I put one, maybe I could succeed, but anywhere I put one is liable to generate, that I'm successful, is going to generate one of these symbolic objectives, which I will then lose. And it's going to cost me for having conducted the active defense. So I think I'm going to hold off on any, honestly, because I feel like the Austrians need to fall back in the face of the Russians. They still need to perform an offensive, but they can do that over there. And with the Germans, they're really low on forces. Again, they could probably take a hex. It might be okay, but it seems like a bad idea to do the active defense, to be honest. Which then means now I have to look and see, do the Russians want to do any exploitation attacks? And the answer to that is certainly yes. I've got, places where there are holes. I can't use the artillery on them, but there are places that are weakened that I can push through. Even something like this where I'd have to cross the river, I don't, because I can slip up there and in. So because I've broken through the river lines in certain places, I have a lot of flexibility. I will deploy all the units that are continuing their attacks. There's something of a technical debt or whatever in these spaces. I'm gonna have to spend supplies to reinforce those spaces and move units up, but I think it's worth it to get this breakthrough that I'm getting. Over here, I don't have the same problem because these, well, I might want to replace, I might want to, I don't know, we'll see. This looks a lot less sustainable, but a cutoff by the Austrians could be devastating if I don't have a basis, so I probably will also pay there as well. In the East Front, I feel like I have more supplies available, at least the Russians do, for what they're doing than compared to what I felt like I had on the West Front. And that's actually true. I only have to spend 2 turns instead of 4 over here with my starting supply points. And the starting supply points are about equal to the amount of armies I have, so, is that part of this debt that I'm talking about has to do with me putting my best units in the first rank. If they were in the second rank, they could have pushed up and left first rank units there. It's really hard to think in the way that this game wants me to. And I'm chalking it up to, hey, look, both sides are blundering all over the place. I've pretty much decided I'm going to just play through to whatever point I can't cope anymore. Which, you know, maybe I begin to feel more and more comfortable, and I'm able to cope, even though it's adding more and more fronts as I go. I'm really terrified of the Italian front. Not just because I have no troops there, but because it's going to show up as a random card, which, if I look at the sequence of play, declare whether any event cards will be played is right there. Now, I think when I draw it, it's going to show up, which means if I happen to draw it when do you draw cards? You draw them here. Okay. So, but the problem is I build all my troops, then I draw the card. So it's going to be an autoplay card that brings Italy into the game next year. But I basically have to build my defense against Italy at some point before 1915. And whatever that defense is, that's what I'm going to have, because they're just going to be able to slam into me right after that. Or maybe not. You know, it may take several seasons for them to come in, but they could conceivably come in right in the winter, and that would really hurt. Here's the push that the Russian First and Second Armies are making. Feels like it's going to be real hard for a Hindenburg type move to work. I don't know. Outside of that whole debt equation, I'm able to basically fill in most of the spaces. There is a gap here that I don't like, but I don't think the Germans are going to try to exploit it. They've got enough problems. Still have this battle to take care of. But you can see we're just successful across the board, which makes sense. We're fighting them in the plains. They fire their round and they fall back. Despite me thinking I have a lot of supplies, and maybe I do up here, but against the Germans, I don't think I can maintain another round of offensives. And I would like that big push, or a big push, for next turn as well. And knocking the Germans back seems a lot more valuable than picking on the Austrians. I'm going to be able to blast the Austrians back no matter what. But if I can kind of cut off East Germany, that solves a lot of my or East Prussia. That solves a lot of my problems with regard to them. Yes, they're still going to hit me. They're better units. I've got all these little tiny things floating around, but I might be able to concentrate on an actual front in Poland instead of having, you know, this problem coming out of East Prussia that just collapses my Polish position. I don't know. I got a lot more Russian troops than I do Austrians and Germans in the east. All right, looks like it's on to the attacks on the Austrians. And we easily made gains here as well. I had to spend a non-combat move because of one of those debts, which I'm okay with. And that gets me to time for a Central Powers offensive. So I've actually got a problem with the Austrians down here. We'll have to do an East Front offensive, I think, because this hex here means this guy can't withdraw easily. So I may have to attack that hex in order to get out. If I can defeat that, if I can take that hex, then I could slip out. But I may need to throw both units in, then they can fall back in another direction. They don't have to go back in the direction they came from. Lots of problems for the Austrians, lots of problems for the Germans here. It's all very ugly. I've removed all of the flag markers that don't sit on a victory point city. I hope I have. I hope I haven't removed more than I should have, is I guess what I'm saying. because they don't actually matter at this point, and they could confuse matters because they're not color-coded by the side. So, you know, if Austrians capture this hex, they get a flag there, and I have to know that I can recapture that. I could tilt them different directions and whatnot, whatever. I'm going to put this over here because I know I need to do this next. I am awfully tired. And I think this is probably it, unless I wake up early, relatively early tomorrow before I go dancing, which means it's going to be a few days before I come back. This is a very fatiguing and hefty system. The effort involved in it feels greater than La Grande Guerre, and the payoff feels less. But so far, I'm feeling okay with it. I know I was griping my ass off before. I'm beginning to get used to it a little bit, making a few less mistakes, etc. So often the case with me, several hours down the drain on the computer for no good reason. And, you know, I was too tired to play before, but now I'm up here going to. First thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do the supply fixes for the Balkan area. Then I'll come back because I think the Central Powers want to trigger the East Front. It doesn't make much difference because the Entente can pass on the Balkan Front, but I'm looking at things and my first thought is, I don't know if I want to do an offensive on the East Front at all. You know, that's expending supplies to attack when maybe I don't want to drain my forces there. So then I think, okay, let me go down to the Balkan Front, and that would open me up to the capability of coming over here and doing a second offensive over here. The problem is all the headquarters over here that had any supplies on them have been used, and all the headquarters that don't are the, you know, that don't have any supplies on them are I don't even know if there's much under the ones, you know. I think I pretty much drained the Germans pretty hard. The Entente does have a possible offensive on this side. Over here, the Russians don't, because I used all my headquarters everywhere. So I have, you know, nothing I can really do on an offensive. It's conceivable that I might want a second French offensive here. So I definitely don't want the Entente to do something in the Balkans. But I'm trying very hard to figure out if there's any reason to do an offensive in the East with the, well, with either the Austrians or Germans, to be honest. There's a lot of reasons I don't want to. Do an attrition attack. The Austrians do need to. They need to take this hex. Okay, fair enough. That will be, I forgot about that, and that's why I put the marker down there. Okay. So I think this is going to be pretty small. I'm just making 2 attacks here. Don't think, so here's the problem. The Russians, the Entente got the initiative, so the Russians are going to have the first available attack. At least I think that's the case. I really need a marker for who has initiative and who doesn't. I just could not justify anything for the Germans. They could attack this hex, but they don't absolutely need to. The Austrians absolutely need to take this hex, and this hex is of a fair amount of value to us. And then if we do take this, we could do a continuation with the exploit phase and take this next hex next to there for whatever it's worth. I don't really like the idea of falling back, but these attacks are saying that I'm not going to fall. This attack is necessary. This attack, maybe not. I could fall back from there, but I don't really want to. If I'm up here in the front with these, the idea of having a continuous front up here sounds appealing to me. I'm not activating this headquarters because I want it to fall back. Some of the Austrians here, these 3 units, crossed the river. They're going to suffer the -1 attacker penalty, but the first fire is not going to happen because I had units that didn't cross the river. Let's manage to successfully take this one. I'm going to do an attrition attack here. I fucked up by saying I don't want to. I want to do that because my supplies don't really hurt me. I don't want to actually attack with troops is the thing. Although I could swing in with these, get some pretty good odds, but I think I'm better off just firing 2 rounds. Now, with the 2-round firepower, I'm opening things up to a supply drain fight. The Russians don't want to get involved in that. Their supplies are weak enough, I think. Actually, they may be so weak that they can't do an offensive. Further down, but I can shift some supplies forward. I'm going to hold off on that. So that means that the Germans spend two supply points and get to try to shoot on a 3 and a 2. The Russians may want active defense this one. They don't want to do this one. But this one's of some value because, again, it cuts these guys off and makes life hard on them. We have one of them unknown situations, which is the Russians don't have enough ammo or enough supplies to use the entire force that they brought in. They brought in 6 units, big supply cost. They only hit 1 Austrian with all of that. The Austrians didn't hit back. If the Austrians know just how bad off the Russians are in supplies, and if the Central Powers was paying attention, they would know that overall the Russians are really harsh. They would hold the hex. So I'm going to make a roll on odds the Austrians stay. Okay, so they're going to stay. That means I have to pull 2 of these units out because that hex is, well, it's not that vital because things can. This unit can't pull all the way back is the problem. It can only go back 1 hex. So, I mean, if I'm holding this line, it's not that big a deal that I'm not able to hold a lot more. I was looking at a much deeper withdrawal. They're uglier. The Austrians again got hit. Did that. I'm going to make the same choice. The Russians have to leave if the Austrians don't. The Austrians stick around another round. So yeah, the Russians have to pull out. But I did a fair amount of damage at least. If I didn't mention it, this attrition attack didn't do shit. The Austrians have an opportunity to exploit here. I don't want to take it, but I do want to take the opportunity here to fill in the gap that I've got. Both sides have shot their wad already. Like, there's another month. Yeah, they only get 1 turn in it, but they don't get any additional production or anything. The Germans could actually slither some extra points out here, but they don't need them. They need troops. But the Austrians and Russians are pretty close to down. This army still has points. There's probably a Russian army in here that still has points. But yeah, I gotta fix that. These 2 Austrian armies are definitely down. These Russians are definitely down, whatever's in here. I don't know what's over here, but I'm low over here where I really want to focus because I feel like I can beat the Austrians later. If need be, they're easy to beat up on, but it is not a pleasant looking situation. And the crowdedness may have gotten in my way. In terms of, yeah, this guy can't get out. That's his problem. The other guys can, but I can push back a little bit. Yeah, this, and you know, sure, this month is over, but next month there's not going to be much left either. Is kind of the issue. Anyway, I set the thing over for the Entente down here. That they probably do not. They're probably just going to pass with the Serbs after the Austrians take their last shot. Then I decide, do I need to do something with the Serbs, or is there something of value I can do with the French? At the very least, I could do an attrition attack on one of those two fronts, because both of them have some supplies. That's it for now, except a little bit of cleanup. And now I actually am going to go to bed. Here I lied a little. I got up earlier than I expected, not a lot earlier. It's going on 4 p.m. now. I got up about an hour ago, maybe a little less. Had a pastrami sandwich. You know, I mean, I have enough that I can treat myself to things, but it still feels too much. Although, like, if I go out to eat, which I don't do on my own ever, basically, it costs more than buying something special. I don't know. Anyway, we're here on the Entente side. All they have that they have the Balkan front available. I think the Entente's going to pass. They're not certain whether or not they want to play on the Balkan front. They already shifted their artillery down, and the Austrians shifted theirs closer, because that should have happened in the supply phase. If Austria doesn't want to attack, that's their problem, you know, if they want to pass. So that puts it on the Central Powers. They're going to do an attack with the Austrians. That may open something up where the French have this headquarters that hasn't done anything. It has a lot of points. I don't think it has anything it wants to do. There's nothing I want to do over on the Russian front. But there is some opportunity for me to maybe do something here that can't be responded to by the Germans. Remembered this from, what the hell is it? The Serbia must be destroyed or whatever, the 1914 scenario. I don't remember as much about it from La Grande Guerre, because you don't have the big push situation, but the Serbian terrain is horrible. Like, if you're making an advance everywhere, the river just runs against everything. Trying to make the big push here is really, really tough. Now, it looks tasty. So I've got like 3 single unit hexes here, but there's a river all the way through them, I think. And also the mountainous terrain. Now, these two could slip in without the river, it looks like. I don't know what this is. Oh, that's the river too. We could get in through Montenegro, though. But these other 3 are all river crossings. So then I think to myself, okay, wait, there's 3 empties here and Belgrade. That's got to be good. But this is all crossing the Danube here. Isn't it? It's kind of hard to tell because there's this little bit of white here. I don't know what the fuck that is. That's Austria's border with the river and everything. It color-wise, it's ugly, but the Danube should be the border. And again, into the mountains. But worse, and this has to do with what was assigned to various armies. I didn't have a choice on this fully, but there's a lot of weaker units up here with whatever the second army is or whatever. I also probably want to bring some reserves out of the Second Army, as historically was done, back up to face Russia. But that looks tough. Now, I could bring some of these 2-point units, and that they're not doing me much good on offense. I'll put it that way. Right spot is I may have fucked up in setting up my Serbians. I left this space open. That gives me a river line crossing that a fair amount of forces can make it into Belgrade on. There's another river here, so I guess different branches of the Danube or whatever. Because there's like Blue Danube, there's got to be another one. I'm just not familiar enough with it like I am. Oh, what's going on? I caught the DHS truck as it was in sight, which is what that was about. My package is here. 2 games, not the 2 that I expected. Imperiology, which is the one that people had asked me to look at, and Knock Paris. I had been expecting, although I had showed interest in Knock Paris, no question about that, which is the World War I system that they have on the West Front. I think just the Schlieffen plan, so it's going to be kind of like an offensive à outrance. But the one that I thought I was getting from what he said was Paul Herder's Romania game, which I've heard so much about, even before he signed with the system and everything, and I think converted to the Knock Paris system. It was close enough, whatever, to what he wanted to do, because he'd done all the research on it and everything. And I was very intrigued by this, because that's an operational campaign that I have nothing on, whereas kind of like the Serbia, but yeah, I had real hopes for seeing that. But on the other hand, personal generalized interest, yeah, Knocked Paris is a better thing to show off the system with. But I don't know. I may have to try to figure out a way to get Paul's game if I like the system. At first, I thought I had 3 games, because when the shipping invoice had 3 different items on it, but the third item was only like €1 in cost. It's the erratas for the Knocked Paris, which is awesome. Yeah, and now I'm excited about that, but I've got to deal with this, right? And then I got to go dancing. I don't think I'll have a chance to look and record and all that. Well, maybe I will. Oh, I don't know where I was. I don't, in terms of what I was saying. I know that I'm trying to figure out the attack on the Serbians. But what I think I'm going to have to do is start reading once I finish the book that I'm reading, which is almost done and is horrible. And maybe, I'll work on some magazines while I'm at it. I got another stupid cigar aficionado. Is that a chicken? I don't think so. I think it's a turkey. There used to often be chickens in this yard. Yeah, that's a turkey. There's a coop back there, and they'd come wandering out on the street, but it's been a long time since they showed up. I think since the old lady who used to own it died, or maybe before that. But what I think I'll do is start reading Imperiology while I'm working on this. If I keep going with this, I'll have to take a break. This is a fucking huge game. And I really don't know about the Knocked Paris, whether I'm going to get to that while I'm playing this. It's just so similar, I'm doing an operational World War, a strategic, but with operational scale, kind of at the high end, but of boards on it. So that feels almost like it might be a little too close to what I'm doing. I should have thought of that because I knew I was getting a World War I one, but I thought it was the Romania, which I don't. I was excited about getting to this though, and I may have started the rules for this before I got the offer even. So, all right, let me try to figure out the Serbs. I'm sorry, I'm so excited about like that DHS actually delivered something to me, and all they needed to do was take the photo of the game being delivered and whatnot. Apparently, you can set different preferences there, but what it meant is they didn't fucking have to wait until they caught me. You know, like I've had DHS show up and they just sit at the bottom of my hill, like right down here, and they, I think, try to text a phone number or whatever. Luckily, this phone number was in Germany. This was assigned to. Oh, I don't know, because my phone number wasn't attached or whatever. Anyway, let me get back. You don't hear me this excited very often, I think. Just to add, I had to go change pipes, so I almost ran out in the sweats I was wearing, which I'm fine as long as I don't have to deal with anybody. But the entire back end is gaping open in them. Now, if I go down to grab the trash or my mail or whatever, I remember and I hold it because I don't expect anybody to converse with me when I'm down on the street. The only guy who might is my next door neighbor, or somebody might wave or whatever, but I can just keep holding the back of my pants like I got a big load of shit in them. But I didn't want to have to deal with something. But, I was halfway to the door before I realized, I got to put on a different pair of pants. Okay, back to this. I'm using these on patrol markers to indicate where I had to cross the river. I could have had like an individual unit in one of these hexes that had to cross the river. I thought about that pretty heavily. I think I'm going to commit to a full 3-turn bombardment from each of these on Belgrade. Belgrade's the key, it is the important location. But I have to do a big push, so I might as well take it now. I only get 2 turns, in good weather. And let's give them their thing. Okay, I have 100, yeah. It was like 20? What the hell? Okay. And that, I didn't score anything yet because that happens later in the turn. Okay, I'm just making sure. I'm so confused because of the multiple fronts, basically. So I've got a lot of big attacks. I don't know if they're going to work or not. We've got something of a surprise success over here. Here they withdrew after 1 round, but they won in 1 round here. I still got this one, and I got Belgrade to do. I got to tell you, though, I'm running low on activated markers. Now, I'm only using 3 fronts. A big hunk of the East Front isn't engaged at all, ignoring the Italian front, which could create a fair amount of hits. A couple here, maybe a couple there. Not too much in those fronts. The only thing I have to hope is that the only thing we have to hope for is hope itself. The only thing I have to hope for is that, like in La Grande Guerre, there might be massive attacks early on in the mobile phase, but that starts to decrease as you go on. You're not going to see the war happening across the front. And the attrition rules kind of encourage that. If I want to do an attrition attack or whatever, if I'm not doing, a key attack somewhere, I'm probably, you even see it here. There aren't all that many activated markers on the West Front because we've kind of worn out our opportunities for easy attacks. But I don't know. Again, that's not that heavily used up, and we're still almost out. And I felt that with the turn before was that I had attacks all over with Plant 17 and everything going, and this was getting depleted too. Now the Russian front is seeing a lot, but maybe they won't always. Maybe as I fall back and get a better defensive position, there's going to be less of those markers. The big pushes generate a lot of markers, though. All right, we got bumped out of here, which is cool because we didn't really want to succeed there, to tell you the truth. I threw some artillery, and that was probably a bad idea because I didn't want to succeed. Why? Because it would put my armies up here, which is kind of cool. I'm, cutting off the Serbs, but it leaves this guy dangling with no support. Over in Belgrade, all right, massive artillery bombardment. I got very lucky, a pair of ones, but nothing else. So I took that on units, which helps survive the round of attack. But now, and the Serbs also threw all their artillery in, 3 points of artillery. I didn't use any here. On defense, they managed to get a couple of hits with their first fire and whatnot. The problem is, I'm a little weakened now. I'm not going to get that massive initial artillery bombardment, and I probably could have gone with an even more massive one. I just didn't want to get to the, only hits on twos level, so I only fired 3 rounds from each. 6 shots in there. But if I attack now, I'm kind of at a disadvantage. I don't think I'll succeed. I think I'll take greater attrition. I think my best job is to fall back and just eat the, take the advantage of what I did in one round of combat with that massive artillery start and then back off. That's not something I've generally done, but the terrain here is particularly hard, and I don't really need to gain ground. What I need to do is probably wear out the Serbian army to where they can't hold this line anymore. There's one possible counterattack, which I don't think is a good idea. No matter what, the Austrians are going to be able to flank the Serbs. And there's also the exploitation possibility, and then, the but the exploitation possibility, which would be coming out of here. Oh, that's nasty. That's an undefended army headquarters there. I can get to it. Ruh-roh. I think the Serbs are in trouble. I may end up capturing supplies. The problem, of course, with that is the Serbs could come back and hit whatever's there. Kind of shows, as I got later and later in the gluing process, I think I got worse and worse. Get a mistake like that, but, these are kind of common. There's a little bit of silver showing. Honestly, because of the fact that all the counters were hand-cut, not by me, they're not going to fit. They're not going to match up anyway. So I think things like this are impossible to avoid. But this is a little worse. This is just horrible. And I'm thinking about peeling that back. I actually have my glue up here because I had a piece fall apart that I had to re-glue. It's just part of the problems. And the Serbs did decide to make that counterattack. This opens up a hole, but I can try to fix it. I hope. It might be worth a couple of supplies for non-combat movement. Some of the stuff I can just swap out, like here. Just put bigger forces into Belgrade. But in terms of covering this, I'm going to need to do that in the non-combat movement. Except the Austrians could conceivably throw some cav up. Is it worth it? It would be 1, I don't know if that's 2. But I'm not going to be able to get infantry up there. We only have a movement of 4, and a lot of this is 2 movement point stuff. Although, this one I think maybe? No, that's a shadow. Yeah, these are not. Those are 1 movement point each, so even infantry could probably squeeze in up there. Okay, I think the Austrians are going to try to fill in with some non-cav, with some non-combat movement. Oh, they can't. There's zones here and here. Can't slip through. That's cool. Because they won't be able to do it in the regular movement either. So the Serbs don't have to worry if there's any ordering, but there isn't. The Entente gets to go first. That is going to be the 3rd offensive option for the Germans. And now we're back to 1, and I don't know if we have to take it here. Can we do what we want to do with regular movement? Probably. So I'm going to have to put some big movement in. I want to look at my game and whatnot. It's not getting all that late. I actually probably could have the time to either do an a tiny offensive over here, or whatever might happen in the Balkans. I don't know, but I want to break, and that might get in the way. If I get those things done, I can finish the turn, but what I won't have time for is the economic West Front turn. So it's maybe best to leave it in this state rather than complete the last offensive available. Right before I finish up, this had to do with the Russian front. The artillery here looks too much like the planes. I know that probably doesn't look terribly alike to you, but it's got to do with the coloration of the planes. It's not the same as the artillery, and the slant and whatnot. I don't find this with most of the recon planes, but as more and more types of planes are showing up, they're going to be confusing to me. The counters don't feel distinguished enough. In fact, I had the huge problem of these, which looked like airplanes. Those are the reinforcement markers. I don't even know what they're meant to. I guess that's a whole bunch of men. Like a big column of men. But yeah, some of the graphic choices. So regular units don't have an image on them. Headquarters and airplanes and the reinforcements thing have an image on them, and I'm finding those hard to discern. And it's especially hard because the different headquarters have different artillery, the different planes. Although all fighter squadrons of a given nationality, all reconnaissance, etc., of a given nationality look the same. Each nationality looks different. The headquarters look different. Their images are different based on when that headquarters was entered into the war or something. They have like more modern artillery on other ones. The tanks look different based on when they came into the war. They're also another one that has images on it. And I'm finding those really hard to distinguish and easily identify what I'm looking at. When, honestly, all that actually matters is the type of unit. I would almost, I wish that, like, yes, the tanks are pretty, but the counters aren't very good. They're not very large. And although there isn't much information on the counters, so other than for sorting and setup and whatnot, and pairing a counter with its match, which once they're glued, that's fine. The game doesn't suggest doing that. If they did, everybody would say, hey, why didn't you just double print them like every fucking other company in the world does nowadays? But yeah, there's definite issues with the graphic designs on this. There's sort of a garish color issue too, but I'm okay with that. If anything, I'm finding the colors are too muted in the sense that, like, because the terrain's so tight and everything, and the shadows that I'm getting, which is the peculiarity of my light sources, I'm guessing. But the amount of shadows that I'm getting are definitely causing issues where I can't tell if something is this kind of lighter color or darker color or yellow. They're all kind of blurring together. Anyway. But my big gripe had to do with the plane and the artillery being too much alike. I forgot to mention, what the hell? Anyway, having to do with the tariff situation. I made a tariff complaint video, right? Was that the peculiarities, the regular tariffs, like the tariff extension or increases that Trump put on, those were reversed by the Supreme Court. But what was not reversed was the removal of the minimus extension. Somebody told me about this in that video, which basically says, oh, if you're just a person and you're ordering something from overseas, you don't have to pay a tariff as long as it's under $800, you know? And it's like, wow, that is the thing that really fucked me up. I can understand why you wouldn't want that there, but what it means is that there was no organized, regular way of collecting that, and I don't think anything's been put in place. It's like being dropped on the shipper, which is why DHS is like, and I'm still not happy about them charging me half the cost of the tariff, but I can kind of see why they have to do that. But it just doesn't seem like it's arranged reasonably. Like there's no limit to the fees that they could charge or whatever, you know, because they honestly charged me more than half the price of the tariff, because once it gets in their hands, now it's their problem. They had to pay the tariff cost and now they have to collect it. And if I refuse the package or whatever, you know, they're just shit out of luck. That's not reasonable. So something better has to be designed. And I mean, I guess this is where, you know, the value-added tax and whatnot are all handled in a more appropriate fashion, I'm hoping. Because, good Lord, who the fuck would want to deal with this shit where, you know, you're having to pay. At the very least, my guess is the EU and the UK don't allow a service fee that high, you know, and probably have some kind of way that the shipper can recoup their losses if something is sent and nobody wants it, you know. Here we are on, I guess Saturday. It's not even dark yet, but I bailed early, got home, I don't know, before they even closed. Having adventures on the way, but I still slept until like 5, which means what, like, I don't know, something like 14 hours of sleep. I have no idea why. Anyhow, the key question right now, the Entente has one offensive left. Technically, they haven't done one on the Serbian front. So I have to figure out, do they have a reason to do one here? Because I think whatever they could gain on the West front, the East front, there's no chance. Whatever they could gain on the West front is so minimal that if I can get anything out of an offensive on the Serbian front, that will be valuable. Now, all these activated markers, those have to be Austrian units, which means I don't have a lot of resources to throw forward. I could try to break something up here. I have the initiative, so I get to move first. which means I get to swap some troops out and stuff like that. Maybe hold Belgrade a little longer. I honestly don't see one here. So now I'm going to investigate over on the French. I'll tell you whether or not there's any reason for them to do that offensive. If there's no reason, then they come down to choosing one of the two to do an attrition attack, which probably will go on the Serbian front. I did this when I did a 2-round attack here. The Austrians didn't respond. I actually got 2 hits, which is pretty unlikely. Here I'm also going to do 2-round attacks. The question is, do I want to throw them all at the same hex? Or do I want to split them up? Putting them all in the same hex, I don't know. I don't think it makes sense. So I'm going to do them one at a time. Now the Austrians get the option, and they actually had it over here, but I didn't think about it even. The Austrians have the option to react, except they actually, I don't think, do, because artillery from one nation can be used in attacks and defensive actions by no. When firing in defense, inactivated artillery can fire into only one battle. It doesn't activate in headquarters, but I believe the fact that I've activated my headquarters means I have no defense. So actually, I didn't have the option here, and I don't have the option up here. Okay, so I'll just split up the attacks, I guess. I mentioned this. See, the weird thing is I run things through my head, so I think I may have said them, but I didn't. But otherwise, I won't remember to say them at all. With the games that I got, actually, I had implied that I didn't think I was getting Knock Paris. Actually, the Romanian game is still under development. It's not actually available yet. And an email, the email that indicated what I was getting made that clear. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. It was just me being mistaken because I had expressed more of an interest in the Romanian one. In some ways, I'm happier with being able to test the system out with something I'm more familiar with, because I'm really not familiar with the Romanian campaign. If I like the system enough, am I willing to pay this, without the protection? Am I willing to pay the full tariff cost and whatnot for direct purchase? Not really. I'm just not that. It wasn't a pain this time. At least there was that. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, look, if it's given as a review copy, what I'm saying is, am I willing to order direct and get it? And I don't think so. But if they end up making it available in the U.S., yeah, I might, if I like the system as it stands. Anyway, let me get to shooting some stuff. I am getting so fucking verbose these days. Hit, but then clumsiness when I picked up the counters, I dropped one of the Austrians. I have no idea what strength that was at. I mean, that kind of shit could happen no matter what, I guess. But it's just so much more likely with these stupid rotating things. All right, that puts me down to the normal movement phase, and the Entente goes first. Let's take a look. I'll do it in reverse order, East Front first, because I moved a bunch of units in the East Front. Actually, I can push some of these forward. I had to look something up, which was if you're a couple of hexes away from the enemy, you pay less supply. Well, I was curious whether or not you had to pay supply if you were in position where you could build the unit for free, with just with just the reinforcements points. You don't have to pay supply points. No, there's no reduction for being near the supply centers. I thought I would fall back to them in some cases. Nothing at all about that. Okay, so on the Russian front, we grabbed a couple of things, Memel here, whatever the hell this is, just, you know, filling in territory that we were at, and increased our defenses in some cases. I guess the biggest thing we did was we pushed the army forward with the thought of, look, there are almost no Germans out here. You know, what are we doing so far back, mobilizing, you know, back around Warsaw and not even protecting our Polish holdings? So grab the river line there. Over here in the Balkans, we pulled some stuff out of Montenegro. One unit isn't even on the line, but that's okay. I'm just kind of working my way to get more and more forces to try to protect Belgrade. I can't hold it forever, but just because I can't hold it forever doesn't mean I shouldn't try for as long as I possibly can. And then on the French front, things were even less, I think. We did manage to cover this gap here. This gap is intentional. We're letting the Germans in there, so they're going to get a capture there. Filled up some stuff on the line. Pulled a few units back. Let's put this guy here instead. I don't know. No, let's leave him on the rail. I don't want him under the plane. Is the problem. These fucking planes, they're useless, and they're like taking up space that I have to cope with. But yeah, that'll put me on the German, well, the Central Powers side of the movement phase. I don't really feel up to doing that right away. Even though I wasn't there very late, I had the heavy alcohol content of my beers sort of I always front load them. And I actually had one more than I've been having recently. I'm still affected. And I got to dance a lot less, you know. At least I got to walk home. So yeah, I'll come back for moving the Central Powers units. The Central Powers movement segment, I got two problems. Two big ones, and then the minor stuff that's on the boards themselves, like I had to deal with the Entente. One is, I got probably extra forces in the West, and that guy, and absolutely need more in the East. This is the Hindenburg move, where the Germans shift forces over there. There's no special rules about it or anything. Most other games put a limit on it. There's actually no limit. And so, you know, it's not simply hunting down a couple of pieces and sending them. The second one is something similar, which is the Austrian Second Army being shifted north to face the Germans. And this, to face the Russians. Here, I more or less know what I'm going to do. I'm going to shift some of these Cav units up. They're not really good on offense. They're too small. And this is all done by rail, so it doesn't really cost me anything. There's no rail limitations or anything in this game. It's hard to find the reserves. It really is. It's not like they're over. And you see this effect in something like Offensive Outrance, where it pulls those units out, and you're like, wow, I was kind of counting on them. I've got a pretty thin line of units in the front line now for trying to conduct an offensive. Nothing like what I had initially up here that could just push through. Part of it's because I got this bulge, right? It's hard to support it. I also wanted to pull some units off the line so that they're a little cheaper to rebuild. Let's get that out of there. He shouldn't be there. I thought that was safe, but it's a little further back. A little cheaper on the rebuilding, so I don't have to spend as many supplies on that. Over here, again in the Balkans, I pulled mainly cav away, but it definitely weakens the Austrian line. Now, it makes sense for me to drop these back, make them a little cheaper to rebuild, I guess. I have something under here that maybe didn't move. I don't know. Getting a mess. And, you know, one of the problems with railing units in is they can't go right to the front. They can be just behind it. So I've got, you know, a thin front line still. I have stiffened it with a couple of decent sized divisions, and I've added some weaker divisions that I could build up as well, that were in the west front, I guess. These are 2-point strength. It's facing differently in this way. I extended down to here, leaving spaces, but that kind of works. It's not as good as a solid front. And then moved over to here with the intention of kind of, well, if we're going to do that, we could keep those there then. Kind of support the Austrian line. There's an important production city there. It leaves a hole here. I don't think I have another cav that I could have moved, or whatever. These guys all moved, and it's hard to tell. I tried to pull as much as I thought I could off the line. Shifted some headquarters so they're in less dangerous positions and the like. Now, I guess we go, unless I'm missing something, to the sort of turn cleanup phase. I don't think I'm going to do the production on this video. I got to look for symbolic objectives that have been pushed behind the lines. That may well have happened, and I got no idea how to find them. You know, the problem is that it's World War I, and the borders are going to be densely populated, and the hexes just aren't big enough to contain you know, all the markers easily accessible in terms of visibility. It could be supply units under something, and I think it's a symbolic, but yeah. The issue is, this is when big push offensives that weren't conducted are removed from the board. It's going to be really hard to remember at this stage. It's just too big a game. To me, it's when I conduct the offensives on the front, but there is the possibility that that big push could be continued. But on the other hand, who cares? It could just be restarted then. You know, it's like these things don't have any kind of goal or anything on them. Look a little bit, because the Austrians were still listed as failed on their goals. They killed a Serbian division. That's enough to get them their goal. It's hard to remember that. It was easy when I'm just doing the West Front. It's become harder. The only person who failed at their objective is the French. I've charged them. Because their objective are defensive, and they succeeded in an offensive but lost some hexes, I assume, or a unit or something. Just checking. Okay. Checking my actions for the turn. Okay. So, wow, that was, I think, wet. I didn't account for that. Certainly in the movement afterwards. Well. All right, so anyway, this is what the West Front looks like. The Balkans, and then there's a shot of the East Front. with all those stupid markers removed. I'm not going to do the production turn yet. I'm going to, I guess, load this up. It's long enough, I'm sure, as it stands. You know, I like I said before, I'm just going to continue through, live with the mistakes. I don't feel like they're absolutely devastating here, although Germany got nowhere near the amount of Belgium that they should have. Some of that may be weather. Anyway, let's send it up.